evening, and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 355th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Hazel, Texas. I'm your host, Bear Duplisea, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. It's going to be a fantastic show, part deux. That's two in French, for those of you who are not bilingual. Appreciate you guys all being here. We're going to have a fantastic show tonight, but before we get to formal introductions of our guests of honor, as always, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible, and that, of course, is our sponsors. Tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. The next chapter, speaking of part two, is on its way. J. San and Son is the next chapter of the Jonathan Drew story within Drew Estate. Built as a generational establishment, J. San & Son was inspired by the birth of Jonathan's son and marks a new level of relationship between Drew Estate and its founder. Every iconic brand has its origin story, says San. Ours is built upon family, loyalty, and purpose. It's a beautiful founder, and it's a beautiful founder-forward story. As the culmination of 30 years of building Drew Estate matures into the generational ritual of the passing of the torch with the birth of my son, Jonathan Drew San II, or JD Drew II. CEO of Drew Estate, Glenn Wolfson, had this to say on the announcement of this landmark partnership and venue. I'm extraordinarily excited and proud of this new venture, which is a direct result of the mutual loyalty between Drew Estate and Jonathan, as he begins a new chapter in our collective commitment to innovating for consumers. So, for those of you who are not aware, Jonathan Drew San and Drew Estate announced a new partnership. It's called J. San & Son. Manufacturer and tobacconist. So comprised of a family cigar factory and brand, world-class cigar bar, live music venue, and full kitchen supper club. This exists under a 7,200 square foot room in Wynwood, Florida. J. San & Son resides at 359 Northwest 28th Street in Miami, Florida, and it is the heart of the Wynwood Arts District, a place that Jonathan Drew has called home for 30 years and will be opening shortly this spring. So check out Miami. Check out Jonathan Drew San, who for most people probably didn't even know that was his actual last name. But this is an exciting story, and it's an exciting announcement, and it's cool that I get to actually talk about it on my show in conjunction with an advertisement for one of our partners here. So want to congratulate Jonathan Drew on this amazing new chapter in his life, and Drew Estate, of course, in this amazing chapter and evolution of the continued story that was started over 30 years ago. So check out DrewEstate.com for more details, and make your way down to Miami this spring. Should be a heck of a time. So without further ado, welcome everyone to our 355th take. If you are tuning into us later, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, you're listening to us courtesy of our good friends at Gran Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today. Thanks to our good friends at Gran Habano. If you're checking us out later on YouTube or tonight, live like we broadcast mostly every Sunday night at 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern. I know it's late for a lot of y'all. We really appreciate y'all being here. Tonight's video broadcast is courtesy of Foundation Cigars. Nick Melillo is a well-known cigar maker in the premium cigar industry. He is the founder and owner of Foundation Cigar Company, which produces a range of high-quality, handcrafted cigars. His values include quality, consistency, balance, and flavor. Check out foundationcigars.com today. And welcome, everybody. As I mentioned before, this is our 355th take. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's guest, which is brought to you by United Cigar. Smoke one today and start living united. We welcome back George Brightman, everybody. George, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. I'm looking forward to tonight's show. By the way, congratulations. I love 355. So
Yeah.
you've done almost a full year of weekly shows.
Yeah. It's getting there. It's getting there.
A full year of weekly show dates, meaning it's amazing. It's quite an accomplishment, and I'm happy to be here and honored to be joining you. I love our project tonight too.
Yes, it's absolutely fantastic. So for those of you who are just tuning in, maybe for the first time, or catching it and are wondering what George is doing back so soon, it's because we had so much to talk about the last time, and we also had our fair share of technical difficulties too. That we decided to open up a part two of the limited cigars, top limited cigars, limited edition cigars of 2025, um, in for tonight's show. And I'm really excited about to complete this project with you, George. It's a lot of fun, and I know you have a couple of extra fun things to talk about tonight. So I'll let you kind of open her up here.
Well, yeah. So I think the first thing to say is that I have two, three caveats or disclaimers, if you will. So think about it this way. Um, I I want to say again, reiterate that I'm really happy to be here, and I think this is great project, and I enjoy doing it. I hope everybody gets some benefit out of it, but I want to remind everybody that this collection of cigars that we're evaluating as the top limited edition unicorn rare whatever you want to call releases of 2025 is totally personal. It's strictly me. um, and I should the side part of this is that last year in June, I had hip replacement surgery and I was immobilized for the better part of 3 months. And so I might have missed a variety of things. And even if I caught some things in that period, my taste buds, because I really wasn't smoking that much, might have been out of whack. So that's by way of saying, if you enjoy tonight's show, what we've covered and how we arrive at our decisions, let Bear know, thank him, and like and subscribe, of course. But if you got problems, aim them at me because the choices are mine. The reactions are totally legitimate in terms of what we're going to discuss tonight and how Bear feels about them. But the reason that the portfolio exists the way it does is because I put it together. Um, and like I said, there might be a little hole in the middle of it in terms of and the other thing I'll say is that there are a couple ringers in there, which we can discuss as we get to that stage of it. But if you think about it, what this says is that we have this we're living in a glorious time to be a cigar smoker because if I could take 3 months off and still accumulate 14 or 15 really great cigars and I mean, more than just, oh, I like this, I buy it again kind of enthusiasm uh, out of a year. That's a phenomenal accomplishment, and we're all lucky to be around for that. It just points up the talent, the commitment, the passion, the success from both the farming level, the factory level, and the retailer distribution efforts that are out there to make these cigars available, however limited they may be. What you may have to do to chase them, it's still worthwhile. So again, if you like it, let Bear know. If you hate it, you can try and fire your complaints at me.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Absolutely. Well,
But I'm
thanks for,
excited. I'm
yeah.
excited to dive into. But so and not to step on your toes there because the whole show. You're in charge. I'm just here to offer my 2 cents. But I want to stick with the classic Bear protocol, and I think you and I should open up and fire up. So what I thought I would do is show you, and this relates to my um, final caveat. I have here in my magnificent cigar case 3 cigars that I would gladly have sent you had they been available uh, when I was assembling your package. So I'd like to show them to you, and you tell me what you think I should light up. All right? And this is in no particular order, and we'll talk about that regarding the cigars that are there. But so number one, this beautiful Robusto. Look at that! Look at that wrapper, the shine and everything that's there. So a really
Oh,
lovely wrapper, Robusto.
it's
All
gorgeous.
right, pressed. Yeah, it's sexy beyond. Then this sexy blonde Toro. that is also trunk press, but I mean, this is a work. You pick this cigar up, and actually, it's like one of those cigars that you go, man, I can't wait to smoke this. You don't know whether it's going to be heathery, creamy, or it's going to be bold and leathery, barnyard. It could go any number of directions. And finally, again, a cigar that I really, really was hoping I would have been able to get my hands on to send to you. This magnificent figure out. I'm trying to hold it so you can see the whole thing. A Salomon style with this. The shine on this wrapper is just glorious. It's a thing of beauty.
All
So
right.
that's three choices for me. I will accept your advice on what to fire up.
Uh, I'm really excited to see. I know how much like you really like blonde cigars, and even though they can offer different flavor palettes and everything like that. So let's go with number two, and
Good.
let's see
Okay.
what kind of cigar that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to do that. But first, I have to find out what happened to the top half of my cigar case so I can put it away. I'll be right back.
No problem. As George has some time there to put together the rest of his cigars choices for the rest of the show, and then collect the
Yeah.
one that I suggested for him. Want to go ahead and let everyone know that we're going to go ahead and dive into tonight's major point, which is brought to you by our friends at Gran Habano Cigars from the fertile lands of Honduras. George Rico and his family have put together the very best vintages for you. Yes, you, the cigar smoker. From value-based hits like Corojo Number 5 to the award-winning 20th anniversary to special projects like Zulu Zulu, Gran Habano is about cultivating the best and making pinnacle cigars for the market. Culture, tradition, quality, premium handcrafted Gran Habano cigars. Well, welcome everyone. Like we said, this is part dos um, of the top 14 limited edition cigars of 2025. I have reserved for tonight. I have, even though George said he did not necessarily put them in a particular order, I decided to save one and two just as out of a kind of a respect thing. I am smoking currently number five, and I have number 14 left as well. So
So
we
you okay? Interesting. You have four cigars out of the 14,
correct.
correct? And you just lit number five.
Yes, sir.
Mm, cool.
So this is I would say this is kind of a double Corona. It looks a lot longer than it looks a lot longer than a traditional Toro, and the gauge of the cigar is a little bit too large to be a Churchill, and I think
Mm.
it's also a little too short to be a Churchill. So I'm going to say a double Corona, um, maybe Grand Corona. Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
Grand Corona, because a double Corona typically is longer than a Churchill in the old school
okay, okay,
arrangements.
okay, Grand Corona. We'll go with that.
But you're right, and it's to me it's a really impressive cigar. In other words, that's another cigar. You pick it up and hold it in your hand, and you go, "Wow, this is really something."
Yeah, there's a lot of weight to it. You can tell there's a lot of tobacco. The cold
Hmm.
draw was really nice. Got some praline notes along with some barnyard. Um, was a real nice mix of it. I'll tell you what, George, this was really. I've had this theory before. I don't know if you and I've talked about it. I've talked about it on this show that how each individual cigar shop has its very own distinct aroma.
Hmm.
Like you walk into it, um, you know, like think about where you go now, Capital Cigar, like it,
Hmm.
and compare it to like when you used to work for Davidoff or any of the other stores that you frequented on a very regular basis. Like you were there a lot.
A lot.
And and it just has a very distinct aroma, like each cigar shop. Because, and I try to explain this to people. Everyone's like, "Oh, it probably just smells like cigar." I'm like, no, it's very distinct. Like each
Nope.
cigar shop is very distinct because there's a number of factors, not to mention the environment, the furniture that's there that absorbs smoke differently, the people,
Hmm.
the part of the country, the weather plays a factor, and not to mention the frequent cigars that the regular smoke are all different. compared to one place to another.
Right. And
Right.
sometimes the aroma and the vibe is always sort of comes from the top down. In other words, the owner and their preferences, their relationships, and things like that inevitably has an impact on what their core consumer base embraces. And so, in a way, shops, the ambiance, the environment, not just the aroma, all kinds of little things reflect that sort of relationship and predilection.
I've
I
had
love
the
that. I think it's most people don't notice that because they're not thinking that deeply about it. They just walk in, they go, "Oh, I'm happy. I can smoke a cigar here.
right.
I'm going to light up something that I like," and they're off to the races. They don't take time to appreciate that, the air is good quality, that things are clean, that the furniture is comfortable. In other words, there are some people that, it's such a struggle to find the right spot that if they can sit down, even if you give them a stool and a dirty ashtray, they're happy that they can smoke a cigar undisturbed.
Right. Exactly. So I used to, before I worked for Michael's Tobacco of Euless, I worked for a place called Pop Safari. And it was the
Mhm.
very first premium cigar shop I ever went into as an 18-year-old kid in college. And I got to work, I got the blessing of working there later on. It has that very distinct aroma. And I think I've mentioned this before. There's only been in my memory, which is very good. In my memory, I've ever only had four cigars that distinctly remind me the aroma coming off the smoke, coming off for the cigar triggers that memory for me, that
Connection to a
olfactory.
place.
Yeah. And I've only had it happen like four times
Mhm.
um, with Pop Safari. This is the fifth. Ironically, number five is the fifth. As soon as I
Oh,
lit
that's
this
cool.
up, smoked it,
You,
and
it,
I and
it,
then
it took you back.
and I hit, I was like, "Oh crap, that's Pop Safari." And
How long ago was that, Bear? When you, in other words, when you, not the first time that you walked in, but when you started working for them, so then you would have been really attuned to the place. How
well,
long ago was that?
I went there regularly. I mean, we're talking about I was, I started going in 2002, and
Mhm.
so and I was a regular. I'd say probably irregular in the sense of might be laughable now, but like I would go once a month. I would spend a lot of
Mhm.
finals weeks there cramming and studying and
Mhm.
smoking
Mhm.
cigars. Um and then I started working for him in 2010. And
Huh?
and then but the last time I was there was probably 2018, maybe a couple years before the pandemic hit. And then
Wow.
unfortunately I never went back. Um we lost Perry, the owner, during COVID. We lost his wife, Pat, who was also the co-owner. And then the cigar shop closed, obviously, and stuff. So I never got to go back, and it was just really sad. Um, but it was
So
such a
it's
fun part of the
emotional
industry.
for you when
Oh yeah.
it's very emotional when you find something that has that connection that triggers in your mind your memories of the place. That's
Oh,
very powerful.
absolutely, absolutely, and it's here and it's distinct. It's very good. But other than that, the draw is really nice and easy. It's not like really open, but I would characterize this as the perfect draw for me. I like a little bit of
Mhm.
resistance, always have. The finish is really nice, has a nice length to it. There's a lot of red pepper spice on the retrohale for me. And there's this that pralines that I tasted on the dry draw isn't here in the smoke, but it's still there's still a lot of caramel-esque to it. It's become a little bit more richer. The smoke has got a little bit more kind of velvety, kind of viscosity up against the palate.
Yeah, the
Um,
texture, the
yeah,
mouthfeel is really opulent, luxurious, almost decadent.
yeah. It's really quite something. I'm really enjoying this very, very
Mm.
much. Um, the wrapper is also quite
And
beautiful there.
Yeah, I agree. Look how again we're back at sort of blondish cigar territory, but it's look at that shine and I just I'm really impressed by that cigar, um, and I couldn't help but fall in love. And so and I'll tell you this, when we're talking about the list, I would add things to this collection and then go back and revisit them. In other words, I had to edit to get down to the number that we had. I kicked out, I don't know, 6, 7 cigars probably. I was over 20 in my thinking about, putting this together. And so I would smoke them multiple. I only have one of those left, but I'm already thinking about, hunting down more.
That's awesome. Yeah. Might have to talk you into it. So far, so good. Very, very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable indeed. Very, very much quite taken by it. Well, while we kind of smoked on these cigars for a minute, George, I wanted to talk about a couple of things as well. I had some additional topics I wanted to bring in, just kind of conversation and stuff. And I thought your
Cool.
experience, of lifetime in the cigar industry would be helpful for some creating some context and understanding. Um, so, this is what I call festival season. We
Yeah.
have Puro Sabor, Pro Cigar, which just concluded over the weekend, and of course, the
the
controversial,
canceled, the canceled
yeah,
Festival de Habanos.
yes. So,
Postponed, as they say,
first,
but you let me
it,
know. You let me know when you find somebody who's rescheduled. That's called wave goodbye to that money.
yeah, postponed indefinitely were the ter was the
Hmm.
were the words that I saw used, which means, oh,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen.
Hmm.
Before we kind of start there, let's start there, George. Let's, with the Festival de Habanos. First of all, have you attended, and if you have, how many?
Oh, I don't know, probably at least a half a dozen, but
Oh,
I stopped going by choice.
gotcha. What was that choice?
Uh,
What was that choice around?
um, I, I felt like it had devolved into something which was not about enhancing either the knowledge or the enthusiasm of the participants. In other words, they weren't really doing anything to educate. Privately, what they were doing is celebrating that they got that many people to Cuba to spend money, and they all, everybody is buying to go home. And I'm not even talking about the people who spend outrageous sums at the auction. I'm talking about everybody going there, and the whole island is as jam packed with tempting cigars as it can be, so that everybody's there buys them and takes them home, and they just cash in, and the entire exercise is a massive cash grab. Uh, for and look, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but the fact is that there are very, very few beneficiaries to what happens at Festival de Habanos. And it's people, it's a small collection of people in the government. And the people that are there doing all the work, you know, even as simple as serving at banquets and being drivers and taking care of hotel rooms and everything, let alone the factory workers that have had to toil to produce the inventory, which is the bait for the whole event. They see very little benefit. They don't get the rewards of that,
Yeah.
and I just it's disappointing. And then there's the other. Everybody goes and they go, oh, I got to smoke this cigar, the new limited edition or the new Edición Regional that they're promising, which doesn't come out typically. What they announce at the festival and how they do it, you never see them in the same calendar year. In other words, and then they make a big deal. Oh, we just shipped the limited edition. Yeah, the one you announced last year that was supposed to be around in stores in September and everything else. No, here it is in January. Buy these quick before you come to the island, and we can sell you more shit. I just find it's a very cynical approach, and what they're good at is taking your money while you're there, but they're not good at doing things that make you either a better, a more knowledgeable enthusiast around there. It's purely an exercise in taking your money, and I would contrast that, and the reason why I bring it up this way is that both Pro Cigar and Puro Sabor really do their best to enhance all of their guests' appreciation for their products and deepen their understanding and wrap their arms around them and make them even more enthusiastic ambassadors for those cigars.
We'll get to this a little bit more in a second, George, because I do want to talk about both the events a little bit more specifically. But like to me, my knowledge of Puro Sabor is less than that of Pro Cigar. But what I've noticed about Pro Cigar, the organization, and this isn't to say that Puro Sabor or even Festival de Habanos don't. I'll rely on you for some context, but to me, it seems like Pro Cigar does a not just a good job at that, but they also do a good job of making it a celebration of the Dominican Republic itself, not
Absolutely.
just
Of
the
the country.
cigars. Interesting, yeah, the country. Like the last 2 years, the president of the country has been a guest at least one of the gala dinners. Um, there's
He was
a
there this week.
Yeah, he was there this week. There's a heavy involvement of, obviously the people that are running it, the day-to-days, the drivers, the valets, and all, and the servers and everyone that are making these wonderful things happening, these wonderful events, from the factory tours to the dinners and things like that, and everything in between, uh, are all obviously residents. It's not like they're importing staff or talent to do so. The cigar companies themselves, who employ a lot of people outside of the Dominican Republic, rely more heavily
Yeah,
on the people of the Dominican, it seems, which is, brings an influx of income obviously to them. They're not volunteering, to my understanding, they're not volunteering their time. So,
they're
great.
not hostages, though. They're not
Well,
hostages.
yeah, that's another point. So, but it just seems to me that they do a fantastic job of celebrating the country as well as what the industry is doing for them. So really excited to get your perspective on Puro Sabor here in a second. But if we could go back just in the conversation for a moment to Festival de Vanos, you decided that to not go back. You made it a personal decision. Let's go back to your first
Yeah.
time. Do you remember the first year you went? Ish,
Probably,
roughly, if you don't remember
yeah,
precisely.
yeah, 96, 97, maybe.
Okay. So I want to go back to
One
that.
was the Cohiba anniversary. But anyway, go ahead. I
Yeah, let's
don't do
let's
that.
go back to that. So fast forward, obviously you've made some personal choices after observing 6 or 7 times, like you said, you've been on why you don't want to return. But that on the eve of that first time that you got to go, what was the
Mhm.
anticipation like? What was that first experience like? I mean, it had to be eye-opening in a lot of ways, and I'm sure you were excited.
Well, yeah, of course, for a variety of reasons, but also let's be clear that for some people, the first time that they go to Festival Habanos is the first time that they're in Cuba. I had been in Cuba many times before that. So I was excited about how they were going to execute their festival, um, where they were going to take us, what they were going to show us, what they were going to share with us. And I was enthusiastic, maybe even a little bit naive about how good a job they would do. Right. So think about it. That's in the era when I'm at Cigar Aficionado, and we're in the events business. We're creating big smokes. We're doing dinners of the century. We're doing regional events that aren't big smokes necessarily, but are celebrations with people as guests and speakers. And we're mobile. In other words, we're doing it in a lot of places um, both the original dinner of the century was in Paris, and then we did it in London, and we could have continued, but I think there was a personal burden on Marvin that meant that we stopped that aspect. But we were doing these events with such a level of hospitality that when you go to one that is organized by the host country of the most legendary, the most awe-inspiring, stuff of myth um, in the world, you expect that they're going to top anything that not only that you could imagine, but that you had experienced. And instead, they were sort of, you know, there were aspects of it that were disappointing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's still, listen, anytime you go to a place like that and you meet incredible people involved in the cigar business, and my enthusiasm in visiting factories was always to talk to the rollers, the people who were handling tobacco, people at all stages, not just the factory manager or
The tour
the
guide or
PR
whatever.
person who was
Yeah.
responsible for walking you through and bullshitting you about what you were seeing. Um, and I got that opportunity. In other words, I would just do it. I didn't ask anybody for permission. I would just go wander off and start a conversation with somebody and ask questions and see things and look. And you ended up in places where maybe they were less excited to have somebody who was that probably would have been more forgiving if it was just a regular consumer walking around doing that. But tough shit. But I never I love that part of it. And listen, I wanted to go to Cuba. I was fascinated by Cuba long before I was ever in the cigar business and long before I had ever smoked a cigar. I was fascinated. So when I finally got there, I was like, I could not wait. There was no way there was enough time, and I basically didn't want to sleep. There was always something that I wanted to do late at night, early in the morning. It didn't matter. So and in Cuba, you're always pushing up against what they want you to do and what they want you to see. There's a lot more going on in that island than any tourist ever experiences. And they make it their business to, manage what you see. And if you're good and fleet of foot and a little bit adventurous, you can see a lot more than the stories that they're telling. But man, the first time you walk in the Partagas factory, the first time you walk in the H. Upman factory, the first time you walk in the La Corona factory, hell, the first time you go to a couple, go to a nightclub in Cuba, whether it's Zorro y Cuerpa or Tropicana or something like that. When you go drop and see that show outdoors, it's like, holy shit, I'm watching an episode of I Love Lucy, right? It's like it might as well be Ricky Ricardo up there because they're, the dancers that are out there with the famous chandelier headdresses and everything. They got extension cords running between them, and it's going off stage. And when you see it live, you're like, wow, Jesus Christ, it's we're literally watching the 1940s and the 1950s. And so, that's cool. But at the same time, it's like eye opening. Like, are you kidding? That's what they're doing, But the excitement, the first time that you're in something like that, and you go to a factory and look at what they're rolling, and then you look at how they're testing, and you look at how they're aging, it can't help but literally make you, you know, tingle with excitement. On the other hand, as you explore more, see more, learn more, and repeat the experience and learn to look for details that wouldn't necessarily be there the first time that you go and you go, oh shit, I'm in Cuba and look what's happening. The magical qualities wear off and the mundane, the quotidian, the nagging little details show up and you go, man, this is disappointing. I wish. And again, when you go someplace like Nicaragua, when you go someplace like the Dominican Republic, you see the efforts that the owners of these factories are making for the
Sure.
people that work for them. It's really impressive. It's really impressive, and it's really uh, uh, heartening because it means that the dollars that you're spending for those cigars and the enthusiasm that you share in for these makers and their achievements is justified, and that there's a positive outcome.
Right.
Does that make
So
sense?
absolutely. I don't want to put this qualification on you, George. I know you're not an economist, but you do have your finger on and an understanding on international the international scene when it comes to the premium cigar industry. So with with the with the prices that have been soaring for Habanos cigars worldwide, obviously we don't sell them here in America, but with the prices soaring and the shortages that we've seen over the last 5 years and quote unquote new world cigars as they've been called.
Bullshit.
Yeah,
Terrible
yeah, I
designation.
love how
Terrible
you
designation.
hate that term, but cigars that come from Nicaragua, Dominican, Honduras, and other countries that are not Cuba, um, making more of an imprint in international humidors. Could this postponement, I'll use their word, because that's the word that's on record. This postponement of this festival be the first real sign that the Cuban cigar industry is in a lot of trouble.
They're on their knees. They're on their knees, but so is the whole country. So in other words, I don't think it's first of all, let's say this. The chickens are coming home to roost at long last,
Right.
right? In other words, the mismanagement of the economy, the abuse of the workforce, the whole system has meant that they suffered a talent drain, a brain drain, resources. The crops are a disaster. And remember, you don't have to be standing in Pinar del Rio to understand the difference in volume of the production, and you don't have to be standing on the factory floor there to look around and see not only the age of the people but how many people are in the gallery and what's going on, to understand that they have been impacted in a way that clearly has um, ripple effects throughout the pipeline. And here's the bad part. Okay, the people that are left
We
behind are
haven't gotten
still
to the bad
trying.
part yet.
No, no, not at all. I'm going to unfold this part. The people that are left working there are under greater and more undue pressure to produce in ways that their antecedents were not, right? It's unfair, and challenging. In other words, their workload, the production quotas, all these things that are the kinds of politically applied and economically generated pressure on them is really rotten. But here's the part that really breaks my heart. Around the world, Habanos, Cuba tobacco before that, but the Cuban cigar industry in general has had diehard partners who are in love with the romance, the history, the entire ball of wax, the legacy around Havana cigars. And you know what? They don't give a damn. They turned over global control and distribution to a gangster that can't even go home to the country he was born in, and knowing full well that all they wanted to be sure was that they get their money, what they needed for the economy, and to hell with the consequences. And as a result, all of these hardworking people who operate tobacco shops like Casas del Habano to begin with, tobacco shops, bars, lounges, hotels, the enormous aspect of the hospitality industry that has been responsible for keeping the flow of Cuban cigars getting into the hands of collectors around the world, including people in the United States who go to great lengths and spend absurd amounts of money to circumvent the embargo so that they can get their hands on Cuban cigars. And of course, more and more and more, they're disappointed with the results. But look, in the old days, if we was like, oh my God, it's outrageous. These cigars they're the equivalent of $25 US, and 15, 20, 30% of the box is really underperforming. It's not, they're bad cigars. They're not well made, or you
Right.
pick your complaint, because there's no shortage of them. But people were willing to do that. But when they cost $300, $400, $500 or more for some of the outrageous ELs and ERs, I mean, come on.
Right.
What you're just it's like you're slapping the customer in the face and saying, "See how stupid you are? See how stupid you are? See how stupid you are? By the way, here's your credit card. We flattened the numbers. There's no money left. We'll see you the next time you have enough cash to repeat this exercise." It's offensive. It's not. And by the way, again, downstream, all kinds of people are suffering as a result. But the best consequence is that now, all of a sudden, all of these people who have looked down their nose at the incredible range of product which is available as a result of the Cuban diaspora. Now, let's be clear. The cigar industry today has flowered and blossomed, and incredible things have happened. But the drive to expand where in the world you could source, where you could find, grow tobacco, and teach a workforce to make cigars that would eventually come to rival classic Cuban cigars is a Cuban inspired phenomena. That is not to say that there isn't an incredible. Listen, look at Henry Kelman. There are people in the Dominican Republic. There are people in Nicaragua. There are people in Honduras. There are people in Costa Rica who are native born and working at this, and they're incredible. They're doing remarkable work, and the world is starting to appreciate that now.
Right.
Whereas before it was always like, you don't stand so close to the wagon wheel, you'll get axle grease on your shirt. The Cuban cigar parade is coming through. Step aside, the pros are here. And now that's absolutely not true. Here's the hard part for those people who dedicated so much of their working lives to being good, informed, responsible Havana cigar merchants. They're late to the party. They don't know anywhere near as much as they think they do about tobacco, because the only thing they've ever done is swallow the Cuban cigar propaganda of the last 30 plus years. Um, and all of a sudden their taste buds are waking up and they're going, oh my God, where did this cigar come from?
Right.
And what about this flavor? So that's a great journey for them. It's really, really exciting. But think about how frustrating it is for them, because not only do they have to play catch up, but they have to compete now. These great brands. I mean, you think about the Fuentes and the Padrones and Lito Gomez I mean, we can go on. I could name a bunch of other people, but all of a sudden their product is in demand around the world. And what they've been doing responsibly, like the Newmans started this a long time ago. They understood there's a time coming when their product is going to be the savior of a lot of these people, and they built relationships that they and the Fuentes, uh, uh, but they've been focusing so much of their production on satisfying the U.S. market, growing that market. Now, all of a sudden, you have this level of demand from them. You have people that have a lot of money and they desperately want product, world class product to sell. And
Right.
so the top 20 factories in the world have people clamoring at the gates for their product. And it's very, very challenging to think about how you're going to slice up your distribution. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
imagine, I don't even forget it. We don't even have to say names. The giants are out there,
Well, let's
Ernesto.
let's say this. Let's say 2010 Fuente was probably importing what, 50 million cigars into the US? Is that a fair number in
Yeah,
2010?
yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's say they
All
let's
told.
yeah, let's say they doubled that by COVID. Right? Let's just say it went up to 100 million cigars for the US market.
Yeah.
You know, the international market started unfolding a little bit prior to COVID, but it's really kind of become the Wild West since COVID. So the last six
Mhm.
years now, coming into
Yeah.
the last 6 years.
Mhm.
So, you know, again, let's say Fuentes has still increased production at its regular rate. It's somewhere probably close to 150 million cigars. But now that 150 million cigars not only has to satisfy the American market, which has grown accustomed to having it. And I'm just using Fuente as an example, and this isn't a call out by any
Mhm.
stretch. It's just the natural spreading of resources, right? So now you have,
Mhm.
and Carlito's been doing business overseas for many, many years. So it's probably not a fair comparison, but I still just want to kind of throw it out there. Now you have 150 million cigars, which was going to be the target for a predominant percentage of, US made demand. And now you've got to spread it even more across overseas because of these challenges and stuff. It's an interesting dilemma that I think that obviously a lot of companies probably didn't see coming, or um
But not as fast. I
not as
think they all
fast.
hoped. They
Yeah,
all hoped, but they didn't expect that the bottom was going to drop out of the Habanos market and that all these merchants were going to be looking at bare shelves and go, "Oh my God,
yeah,
I
we
have
need
to
some.
fill them. Where am I going?" But let's be clear about one other thing. And I don't, I'll put it simply. All the rest of the world, their consumption of premium cigars is never more. In other words, all the rest of the cigar smoking markets in the world outside the United States don't excel. They don't exceed the American market. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of
We're
course,
still the number one. We are still the
of
number
course.
one market for premium cigars in the world. Now, if you think about it, um, the demand, the fact that the American market has grown the way it has, and we have, you don't forget, we've continued to bring in new people. We have new generation, new farmers, new rollers, new brands, new merchants. But the cigar boom grew this global audience, and what has happened steadily, especially in the last, say, 10 or 12 years, the global audience has looked around and said, man, there's a lot of product out there that I don't see, that I don't get, but that I want to try or I want to know about. The media, people like you, people like Coop, people like the guys at Developing Palates and Smoking Tobacco, and we can go on and on, but the visual, the bloggers, I social media, the social media mafia and the YouTubers have made global awareness of
Hmm.
this product, which deserves to be on the same stage, which was always Cigar Aficionado's mission. Let's not be at all vague about that. As a result, they have, in other words, all of this attention on what's happening here has grown the audience for these things. And you have all kinds of people. Listen, think about it. Look at the guys that were part of that anniversary show years ago, where we were going around the world. It was a 24-hour marathon
Oh
podcast,
yeah, man, that was so much fun.
and
Meet the
and people
Professors,
from
24-hour
everywhere.
podcast.
It was extraordinary. But think about it. Guess what? You had all of those people weighing in, and they had a degree of familiarity with all of this non-Havana product. 25 years ago, that does not exist.
Right.
So we have grown the global audience for all of these extraordinarily successful and talented people at all these levels. But the difference is that in Honduras, in Costa Rica, in Ecuador, in Brazil, in the Dominican Republic, the most obvious, the benefits of the sales of those cigars are reaching people and changing their lives. That is in direct contrast to what happens in that little crocodile shaped island.
What I think is really interesting, and I'll pick on, and I'm not picking on like I'm being critical of, but I'll pick on two very smaller companies that I know who have expanded their international expansion,
Footprint.
yeah, footprint for over the last 5 years significantly. Fratello, which is a very small boutique brand in the
Yeah.
United States. You don't really see. I don't have Omar's numbers at my disposal, but um, I would say maybe probably around 250 accounts nationwide, maybe. And maybe
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Sure.
probably do a disservice to him or anything like that. But I mean, and that's a nice number considering he's done a bulk of it on his own. But he has got
Exactly.
international distribution in many places around the world. And
It doesn't
his
hurt. It doesn't hurt that he has NASA satellites drop off his delivery.
That's true, yeah, he does. But I mean, I've got to give a lot of credit to him, where he was able to, savvy enough to take advantage of what was going on
He went
internationally.
he went to Dortmund and he worked his magic.
Yeah,
He met people from all over the world who were interested in this. Fratello is look, the reason Fratello works as a brand name because it succeeds in so many different markets. But
right.
Omar's phenomenal at
Absolutely, yeah.
at telling the story and wrapping his arms around people and getting them excited, and the rewards are there. So, by the way, my guess is that Omar does as much or more business outside the United States as he does in the States.
That's what I was about
God
to
bless.
say.
That's
Yeah,
exactly the way it should be. That's
yeah.
that's the beauty of it. But we created that.
Hmm.
We created that fertile ground for these brands to grow.
Yeah, I
Now,
think it's
there were pioneers.
yeah, I think
In
it's
other words,
of course.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah. I think yeah, like to your point, there were pioneers that came before it, but it's really kind of given him the ability to gain a lot of ground and gain a lot of popularity. And he's not the only one. Oveja Negra has expanded internationally. Cavalier of Geneva, which you can argue is an
Yeah.
international brand, but uh,
International brand.
but I asked Sebastian because I had him on my show the week, just ironically, the week he announced some international distribution agreements in several countries. One was including in Ghana of all places, and it was interesting to see how these smaller brands over the years have just been able to expand their international portfolio quite a bit, and
Mhm.
it's done wonders for them. And all power to them and all credit to them. They took advantage of what Habanos has created in this international shortage and this has really kind of shot themselves. I go back to this, George. I think the big there's so many tragic moments about this Cuban cigar industry. There's so many. Um, but what pales in comparison to me from a consumer perspective, just straight consumer, not an American, not to get geopolitical on this, but just a consumer
Right.
perspective, a collector of cigars could buy boxes and boxes of Cubans knowing that 60, 70% of them were utter garbage and be amazingly happy about that. And
But guess
at this,
what? That same standard does not apply
that's my
to the
point.
rest of the Cuban diaspora. They
Right.
get judged very harshly if one cigar doesn't
Right.
perform. And they go,
Exactly.
oh, this brand is no good. It doesn't have the flavor, or it doesn't, whatever. They make some, whatever criticism it might be, however they want to pick at it. One cigar, and they want to condemn them to the trash heap of
Right.
mediocre.
If and
But
I
Havana,
asked. Yeah,
Havana has unlimited forgivability.
yeah. I asked Pete Johnson this question because I know a lot of his inspiration comes from his his origin is the love of Cuban cigars. I mean, he's made no secret about that. And um and it was incredibly ironic in the worst way that people would judge his brand harsher than that of, I guess you could call his Cuban counterparts. And it just drove me up the wall the last few years. I would say the last 15 years about how that kind of grace could get extended to a country or to a manufacturer, and that same standard wasn't didn't go across the
Total double
aisle.
standard.
Yeah, it was
Total double
unbelievable. It was but how do you and even more so now, the worst part about this, George, for me, from the consumer perspective, is they're flushing all that goodwill away and beyond. They're
Oh, the
flushing it all
Cubans.
away. Yeah,
The
exactly.
Cubans
Yeah.
are, yeah.
And then now we finally, like you said, the chickens are coming home to roost, and now the people have been making phenomenal cigars for the last 20, 25, 30 plus years here for this market that we call home are finally going to be able to reap the rewards that they so richly deserve.
Exactly
And
right.
so, anyway, um,
And by the way, let's just put a coda on this in one respect. No matter what happens over the next 6 to 8 months in Cuba, and if they can stage a recovery, which would be no less miraculous than the U.S. men winning the hockey gold at this year's Olympics.
no shit.
Uh, if
Nice
they
pull, nice
if
pull,
they were
George.
well, but if they will never recover, the in other words, the audience that has seeped away, that first of all, that no longer trusts them and no longer idolizes them and has them on a pedestal because they've seen
Right.
the consequences, that Cuba will not recoup that it'll take more than a generation. It'll take multiple generations to rebuild the kind of golden aura around everything that happens there. And in the meantime, what will continue to rise in global importance, global respect, and global recognition is all of these cigars from other countries, which for 50 years have been striving, and the vast majority of them don't. This is an important thing to consider, but you this is much admiration you have to have for what they have achieved. The vast majority of them simply went out to try and find a place where they could grow tobacco that would allow them to blend something which was evocative of the Havana cigars that they love. But we are so far behind that, so far beyond that. These guys have developed flavors and profiles and tastes and even sizes and shapes that the Cubans never dreamed of.
Mhm.
So they have gone so far beyond their original goal of making a cigar which would make an American smoker happy with what they could offer and not say, "Oh, I'm going to give up smoking because I can't get Havana cigars." That is the most extraordinary thing. The maturity, the complexity, the depth, the variety that we have in this market today it isn't the golden age of premium cigars. It's the fucking platinum age.
Ooh, I like that. We're gonna take that and steal that from you, George. I love it. I couldn't agree more. Awesome. Well, want to go ahead and take a break here, and we're gonna pause with
Okay.
one of our fun segments, and then we're gonna come back and talk about the number five cigar that you sent me.
Yes, please.
Because I've been smoking this and enjoying it. The
Great.
draw continues to be flawless. The construction is fantastic, and the smoke continues to just come at a terrific rate. It's quite complex. There's been a lot of
Yeah.
change in the cigar, and I can't wait to talk a little bit more about that. So let's go
You
ahead and
took the words out of my mouth. It's about the evolution of flavor that cigar offers. It's three different parties. But anyway, go ahead. Let's get. Not that I'm not having fun. By the way, for all the people who are watching and all the people who will watch, thank you for your time, your attention, and your thoughts. And we welcome all of the feedback. but this is it's such a gas to be focusing on these extraordinary accomplishments and to be able to, to point it up to people.
Yeah.
So, but go ahead, let's do the fun segment.
Here we go. Let us go ahead and do the United Cigar Presidential Trivia segment. Are you ready to live the United lifestyle? Launch your palate voyage with United Cigars. You can celebrate over 250 years. Yes, 250 years. Happy birthday, United States. 250 years of excellence with the Red Anchor, or experience elegance with La Giana Havana. Rekindle the spirit of 1776 and light up the skies with a firecracker. Then celebrate honor, pride, and accomplishment with a gold star. Or you could just jet set the globe and capture luxury with Atabey, Byron, Alfonso, Bandolero, or now the Nelson brand from Selected Tobacco. Don't just smoke. Smoke United. United Cigars since 1901. United we smoke. So
Go
George,
Ollie.
last time we were on last time we were on the show doing part one of this series, we stumbled into talking about Death by Lightning, the
Oh
docudrama
yeah,
movie by Netflix about the last days of James Garfield.
right.
And what a whirlwind and that particular movie was. I really, really enjoyed it. I've watched it three other times since. And I thought it
Mm,
would, as a little continuation, we wouldn't go back to James Garfield, but we would go to his successor, Chester Arthur, who's a very interesting presidential character. Then I've got two questions here for you. Under
okay.
Chester Arthur's presidency, we saw the largest expansion of what? This is multiple choice. So, under
Okay.
Chester Arthur's presidency, we saw the largest expansion of what? Was it A, the spoils system, B, women's suffrage, C, the U.S. Navy, or D, the gold standard?
That's interesting. Uh,
The answer is actually very fascinating.
I don't think it's the gold standard. And I'm trying to think about the era. I don't think women's suffrage would fill. It could very well be the spoils system.
Is that your answer?
Yeah,
It's actually the U.S. Navy.
great.
The U.S. Navy. So fun fact. So leading up to and during the Civil War, the U.S. Navy, and I'm talking about the North, I am talking about the Union only. The U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Navy had 700 ships in its fleet. 700 ships in
100.
its
Yeah,
fleet. By the time James Garfield took office, and just 6 months later, Chester Arthur would assume
right.
the
Succeeded.
presidency,
Yeah.
the fleet of the United States, so now this is the North and South combined, had
Mhm.
been depleted to just 52 ships, from 700 to 52. And it was under the advisement of William Hunt that Chester Arthur decided to expand the U.S. Navy. And so in 1881's annual message to Congress, Chester Arthur advocated for a stronger Navy, and he gave full authority to his new Secretary of Navy, William Chandler, who was actually Hunt's successor. Hunt was the original one who had actually advocated for it under James Garfield, but he was replaced by Chandler to bolster the Navy. What's interesting still is this decision by Chester Arthur is what led to obviously the immense growth of the U.S. Navy, the immense power of the U.S. Navy, that would later go on to assist in the winning of the Spanish-American War.
Yeah.
Obviously, do wonders for supporting Europe in the early days of World War One before we
World
entered
War
the
One.
war,
Exactly.
and is the obviously the decision that would lead to ultimately what is characterized by many to be the single greatest historical day of significance in American history in the 21st century, which was
The
or the 20, the
landing
twentieth
D-Day.
20th century, excuse me, not 21st, the 20th century, Pearl Harbor. The Japanese would probably have no would have not they would have done something probably much different if our Navy had been any weaker.
Mhm.
And there would have probably not been a base on Pearl Harbor if you think about it too. Maybe, maybe not. But the significance of the Pacific Fleet probably wouldn't have existed had Chester Arthur not decided to move forward with this decision. So it's interesting how a decision in the 1880s led to the most significant event in the 20th century that brought the United States into World War II and
Into the
ultimately
war,
changed, yeah,
into the war. Yeah.
ultimately changed
And
the
don't
course of U.S.
forget,
history. Yeah.
our ability to build ships and to get boats in the water is one of the things that allowed us to prevail.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Right? In other words, the might it wasn't just what we were able to do between Reconstruction and World War One and World War Two, but we're our ability to turn out that really is the event that turned the tide. In other
Hmm.
words, the capacity to do that. Interestingly enough, do you know where Chandler where he came from?
Well, now it's escaping me. No, not offhand. Not offhand.
I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that it's Kentucky, that he's part of the family. So if you think about it, a guy who's landlocked is, I mean, obviously the river is there, but somebody who was, wasn't about ocean going. But I'm pretty sure that's where Chandler was from.
Yeah. I yeah, it's escaping me for some reason. I know, I mean, he was a really prominent politician. I should know this.
Yeah.
He was a really prominent politician post Civil War and into the new century, if I
Hmm.
if I recall correctly.
And has quite a legacy.
Yeah.
Okay, go
Interesting.
ahead. I know
Yeah.
you got another one
Yeah, that's
lined
crazy.
up. You got another shell in the cannon.
Yeah, here we go. So, um, another important pivotal moment of Chester Arthur's presidency was the passage of the Pendleton Act of 1883. Why was the passage of the Pendleton Act of 1883 ironic when it comes to Chester A. Arthur? Was it A, Char Ar Arthur hated bribery? B, Arthur's foray into politics was a direct result of the spoils system? Or C, Arthur believed that alcohol was evil?
It could very well. I I think Arthur did think alcohol was evil, but I don't think. I think it might very well be that it was again. My answer is the spoil system response.
That's correct. So Arthur's foray into politics was a direct result of the spoils system. So there are people that for people who don't know, the spoils system was the act of was the nickname given out for the act of patronage jobs that were handed out.
Patronage,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Tammany Hall,
yeah, Tammany Hall. He was a
Tammany
he was
Hall.
he was a Tammany Hall product of New
He
York.
was
So
right.
you want to read some fascinating political history, just delve into that machine that existed up until the 1950s, by the way. But the spoil system allowed people who seized power, whether so think about this Republican, Democrat, Whig, going all the way back, could appoint um, friends and relatives to positions of power, whether they were qualified or not. Now, you're probably thinking, well, wait a second, that still happens today. Doesn't the president choose their cabinet and assign jobs? And you're right in a lot of ways, but the
It's not the
what
same.
what the Pendleton Act of 1883 basically did was make it harder, and ultimately, while a lot of nominees still get pushed through the confirmation process, there is a confirmation process that has to take place for many political posts, including cabinet members and Supreme Court justices, and so on and so forth. So, um, Chester Arthur, whose fame, fortune, and notoriety came as a direct result of the spoils system, put into place the Pendleton Act of 1883, which made it harder. after seeing the Death by Lightning and going back and doing even more research, and I'm in the middle of reading another Chester Arthur biography right now. Um, it's it's insane. Um, it's insane that he actually went through with this. Like it I I am convinced now more than ever, and I think it's in I think the movie does a really good job of this, George, of um I think Garfield's death affected like can completely change the trajectory of Arthur's life.
Mhm.
And I set him straight's probably an extreme, but the the things that he did during his presidency were probably in direct contravention to the way that he acted before and the way that he
So let's
rose to
just
power.
there's two things to say about that. One, it's one of an early example of what was becoming an adage, which is the man doesn't change the office changes the man. Now, if
Yeah.
you know in that, one of the, another byproduct of the Tammany system is the rise of political cartoons and their ability to shape public opinion.
Yeah.
And you know who the most successful and the most impactful of those political cartoonists was?
Uh, I was about to say it, and now it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh God.
He has two other significant contributions to our culture, which endure to this day. And he brought
Uh,
down Tammany Hall himself, Thomas Nast.
Thomas Nast. Yes, I was like, it's right there.
Right.
It's right there. Oh my God.
So think of
Yeah,
think of Nast's two other contributions. First of all, Nast is the guy who popularized the image of the Republican elephant and the Democratic
that's
donkey.
right. Right. Yep. Hmm.
Second of all, Nast is the one who modified an English character and turned him into Uncle Sam. The
Oh, that's
ongoing
right.
image of the U.S., Uncle Sam is a Thomas Nast character.
That's right.
And third, probably enduring for the rest of recorded history, Thomas Nast is the person who illustrated the most famous version of Clement Clark Moore's The Night Before Christmas. He created the popular image
Which
of Santa
Santa
Claus
Claus. That's
long
right.
before the way we think of Santa Claus in this country is Thomas Nast's
Yeah.
vision.
Hmm.
And he did it long before A Visit from St. Nicholas, which is the actual name of the poem, was published because he drew Santa Claus as a Civil War correspondent, and he drew Santa Claus in the camps and everything else long
Right.
before the Tammany Crusade. So and by the way, both of those characters, Uncle Sam and Santa Claus, were always smoking.
It's true.
Uncle Sam, as Nash drew him, always had a cigar,
Hmm.
and Santa Claus always had a pipe.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you think of all the pictures of Boss Tweed, the symbol of Tammany corruption, Boss Tweed always had a cigar.
I always had a cigar as well. Yep. It's it's uh it's unbelievable how those enduring symbols have lasted over a century and are part of
Mm-hmm.
American consciousness and are
It's the
threaded into
fabric
the
of American.
yeah, are threaded
Exactly.
into American fabric. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That they were started as, essential, especially in the case of Uncle Sam, but even you could even say with Santa Claus too, and especially with Boss Tweeter, the political commentary behind it,
Mm-hmm.
which is just incredible. So yeah, cool stuff
I
about
bet you. I bet you, if you look close enough at a collection of Nash drawings, the political commentary about Tammany, you might have seen a United Cigar Store in the background.
probably, yeah. I think I mentioned this on the last show. It was really cool. I found a United Cigar sign
Hmm.
hanging in Bucky's of all places,
Hmm.
by the Bucky's
Hmm.
gas station here just north of Fort Worth in Texas. It's crazy. Sent it to Oliver. He loved it. So I was like,
Yeah.
I can see if they'll sell it, and he's like, no, man, it should stay there.
Yeah,
All the
exactly. No, no, no. It's
free
much better
advertising.
than Sphere.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Love it. All
So,
right. Well, great.
well, that was our
That was
presidential
cool.
trivia segment for tonight. Make sure you, if don't just smoke, smoke United. United Cigars since 1901. United we smoke. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's talk about this number five cigar, George. Just a really complex cigar. Um, just full of a lot of beautiful woodiness, caramel sweetness, balanced by some beautiful spice. The retrohale is long, which I really thoroughly enjoy. Um, there was this rush in the second third of some really bright, a really bright acidity to it. Not in an
Mhm.
acrid, you know,
Not in a negative way.
not in a negative way, but this bright acidity, reminiscent of like a citrus component that kind of came into it, and the smoke, like I said, continues to billow. The construction's phenomenal. The draw is incredible, and draw is perfect as far as I'm concerned. And
Hmm.
just a really enjoyable cigar. Um, what can you tell us about it?
Well, I was reaching to see if I had an example, but what I can tell you is that I liked it so much that I smoked the last one that I had. And uh, it's of a piece with what I was talking about how the market has allowed these incredible creative people to give rise. So to me, what I loved about that blend was the evolution of the flavors was exactly the ride that I wanted to go on. Not that not that it was predictable in a way, because I kept enjoying the turns, the way the flavors would transition and what would present itself. But I love that we went from some brighter florals, probably the wrong word, but hothouse flavors, and then these caramel, syrupy. And they're nougaty, and yet they had leathery qualities in terms of the finish, and then this nuttiness arrives on the back end, and you sit there and go, "Oh my God!" And as you go through
Yeah,
the evolution of the cigar, it keeps showing you something new at the same time that these little flashes, especially on the retro, come and they remind you of where it started. And so I love that when when a retro is like, oh, that little tingle that's there, and they go, oh my God, yeah, that flavor was there, and now it's something different, and it keeps doing that. In other words, the callbacks change because the cigar continues to evolve. But by God, is it it's a masterpiece of blending, and it's also a masterpiece of maturity. That's one of the things that was my characteristic for these. As I smoked them repeatedly, in other words, I got them, I bought them, I set aside yours, I had mine, and I would go through my process for sorting and evaluating, who gets kicked out and who stays. I think that is a candidate for aging that will reward patients in ways it's easy to predict because of how much we love the cigar, but what it will do, where the how the flavors will present, the degree of woody notes that come in, the deepening of some of the leathery aspects, all of that is going to be the reward of having enough of them that you can visit them in your humidor a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. Do you want to know what it is?
I do.
It's the My Father, Don Pepin, 20th.
Oh, fantastic.
And I got to tell you, listen, I small PSA. I went out and got that cigar because one of the retailers that I talk to often and discuss, what's great and what isn't, what's good and not great, but wants to be, suggested to me that I had to find these. And I went out and bought them. I honestly think that technically it's an older release. In other words, I believe that it might have started earlier, but that the batch that was there that he called and said, "Man, you got to try this cigar." And when I called him up after I bought some and smoked them and said, "Holy shit, you know, are you selling these?" And he's like, "No, I can't. They're all sold out. They're all gone. I can't keep them in stock. If I have them and I turn people onto them, I tell people, you got to try this cigar. They go nuts."
Hmm. It's very good.
So it's I very good to my way of thinking, is an extreme understatement about the
No, I
depth
would agree
of
with you.
flavor, that cigar offers, the reward for. By the way, it's a pretty big cigar.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and not, these days when you say a big cigar, people automatically think, oh, it's a 60 ring gauge or more or something like that. That's not the case. It's a hefty cigar. I want to say it's a 56 ring gauge. But anyway, the thing is, it's not obese. It's not overwhelming. The balance, the proportion, the way the cigar works, everything about it is phenomenal. That cigar lasts and lasts and lasts. Unfortunately, you and I are, it's almost midnight. It's kind of time to make a change. In other
Hmm.
words, we'll talk about my cigar a little bit later. I'm loving mine, but I'm jealous that you're smoking that cigar because I and that's not to take anything away from this, but that cigar makes my mouth water.
Yeah.
And I mean that both in terms of psychologically, like when I think about that cigar, I go, I want to smoke one, but also there are some cigars that are still great, that have wonderful properties and that you enjoy and think about, but they dry your palate.
Hmm.
That cigar does not. You are never in need of, something to drink.
Yeah, it's really phenomenal. It's not it's a 92, 93 for me. So I would say, and it's definitely by far the best cigar that I've smoked so far. I'm about to light up the number two cigar, which we'll get into right now. But
Cool.
so far, I was kind of going through some of my scores. A lot of my scores were 88s, 89s. And I enjoyed the number seven cigar, which was about a 90 for me. This is easily a 92, 93. It's one of the best cigars that I've smoked in quite a long time. Extremely
Okay.
balanced, really, really enjoyable. And
So we haven't really revealed what any of the cigars are that you've smoked so far, correct?
no, we did. We did on the previous show, yeah, for sure.
Did we were naming them as we went? Did
Yeah.
I don't.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Good. Well, so
so
wait a minute. So hold on a second. I want to think back to this. What the number seven was the tenderloin, right? That
correct,
was the pork
yes.
tenderloin redux, right? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I had that as a
Cool.
90, and that
Yep.
I pegged it. I said it was a Tatuaje.
Yes, you did.
The number 10
I
cigar was
remember
a
that part.
thicker Lonsdale. I enjoyed it. But it was probably it lacked a lot of complexity, and I was pretty frustrated with the smoking pace. 84 to
Hmm.
85. And that was, I believe,
But
was that the Mummy Redux?
yes, and remember that's the one that Jason gave you. Just said
Correct,
right.
correct. Yeah,
I said no, no, no. You got the one bad one,
yeah.
and we can't let that stand because I could not leave you thinking that it's that weak an offering. But I will say this right now, from the number seven to this number five, I think you're dead on in saying one is a 90 and the other is I would say 93, not 92. I want to say that when I actually scored it for myself, I was at 90. I was either at 92.5 or 93.5. But either way, I was like, I couldn't take it down any further than that. So
Hmm.
to me, it was pretty close to the ideal experience in a lot of ways, although there's a cigar that I think tops it.
Okay. So I've got the number two cigar here. This is a massive cigar, closed foot, torpedo capped. I don't know if it's quite a 109, but it
it looks that iteration.
yeah. Uh, really rustic. I mean, this is
Show me
almost
the
kind of
top. Show me the cap. Yeah. Okay.
a closed foot. Um,
Mhm.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I think this might be a Tatuaje as well. The
Uh,
wrapper's kind of indicative of some broadleaf, very rustic
yeah.
looking. Maybe I'm wrong,
Yes. No.
but I'm really excited about this cigar. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. Uh, with all my torpedo caps just at a slight angle, gotta create some more surface area. I'm gonna go ahead and toast this foot. Um, it is a close foot as we talked about. Get some of this aroma going. And yeah, you're getting that really nice sweetness right off the bat. Some beautiful pepper
And the,
notes.
and check out the cold draw.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It just you can't wait to light it.
Yeah.
It's one of those. You can't wait to light it, but at the same time you think, man, I could just keep this cigar in my mouth for a half an hour and enjoy the cold draw before I even put a match to it.
Yeah, it's got some glorious sweetness. There's some nuttiness to it as well, some dark fruit,
Mhm.
beautiful spicy components to a baker's spice. It was unbelievably complex. This aroma too is just fantastic. You can see the
Yeah,
smoke coming through
as
twice.
you're first lighting it up,
Oh,
that aroma is if you're sitting in a cigar lounge and somebody lights that cigar next to you, you're like, what the hell is that? I gotta
yeah.
get it. I gotta go buy it right now.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely broadleaf. Oh, there's this great raisin that's coming through. Oh
Hmm.
man, it is. Oh, that is just impeccable. Oh wow.
Ridiculous.
Oh my gosh. Oh, George. This
Crazy,
might
isn't it?
yeah, this might be the best first puff experience out of everything so far. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Man, that is just that'll wake you up in the morning. That is fantastic.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Some gorgeous strength to it as well, but not overpowering. You're not getting smacked in the face, like punched
Mhm.
in the face. You're getting smacked in the face. You're just not getting punched. I know that's kind of
Right.
weird kind of metaphor, but just a lot of fantastic flavors coming through. God, there's so much
It's a
complexity off that
you're
first
getting
puff.
smacked in the face. You're getting smacked in the face with the iron fist and the velvet glove because it's a caress. It's not a punch.
Oh, this has been. Oh, now there's that raisiny flavor is kind of already kind of morphed into like a mulled wine going. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so the spices are coming together to give you that additional complexity and more viscosity than you imagine from the first puffs.
Well, that's just gorgeous. Well, we're going to enjoy this for a
Mhm.
few minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
And
Wow.
I think I'm going to go ahead and light up since you're doing a figurado. I'm going to skip the cigar that I was going to do as my middle smoke and go straight to this magnificent
Yeah,
creation.
I could tell you were really excited about that, but I really wanted to get your opinion on the second cigar.
You mean,
Yeah, go ahead. Well, while
you know,
you're
when,
lighting that one up,
yeah,
talk about the second and what it was. I really wanted to hear about it.
okay. So yeah, we'll focus on that for a minute because I'll show you how perfectly behaved it was. That glorious white ash, the little mascara line, the draw was just the right amount of tug required. In other words, it's not free at all, so it didn't overheat. This cigar was so well mannered and so well behaved and such a perfect companion, and I fucking hate putting it down, but we're time's a wasting. We got to keep going. This is an M. Bombay Gaia.
Oh, I love that fucking cigar. Holy shit. That is
Dude,
so
I
good.
am so upset that I could not include these in the kit that I sent to you, but I was resting them and I smell, they weren't quite ready based
Hmm.
on when I had received them, you know, and I couldn't send you something that I had not thoroughly vetted myself. Now, you know that I'm very biased towards M. Bombay, the brand, the cigars. I was, very sad when they vanished from the marketplace, and overjoyed when they came back. And my friends that I said, listen, I don't care what you think about anything else about it. You just have to smoke the cigars. They are the truth. And the Gaia, which was one of the last things that Mel did,
Hmm.
actually, I think maybe the Gaia Maduro. But anyway, they're just so amazing, the flavor that they have. Here's the way I think of it. It's this balancing act between the lighter, more heathery, honeyed, not floral, but almost
Vibrant.
like
It's
a
like this vibrancy.
jungle floor gardenia, that kind wild, this essence that there's a little hint of a citrus essence lurking in the background, but they have this strong, rich, but creamy bottom note that is just, it's marvelous. It's a superb cigar.
Yeah.
It's sad that they're not more widely known. It's sad that they're not more widely available, but they are an alternative to um, other people's efforts at making Costa Rican cigars. And
Hmm.
I think there's going to be more and more to come. They're very, very, very sophisticated blends that they don't disappoint, and they offer you distinct flavors. So, in other words, you light up an M Bombay cigar, and there are elements of it that you like and that you're enjoying. You know, you're sitting there going through this, but at the same time, you're going, "Oh, wow, this is new. This is different. It's not, you can't put your finger on it. You can't say, oh, I've had this tobacco before, or I know
Right.
this style, or whatever, you know. It remains this third way. It's neither Dominican nor Nicaraguan, and the qualities that it offers are ethereal at the same time that um, they're not wimpy. They're not,
Yeah.
it's not like they're, oh, it was there and then it was gone, and I enjoyed one third of the cigar. No, I'm sitting here saying I really would. I'd love to keep smoking this, but I'm wild about what I'm going to light up.
The the guy, in my opinion, is Mel's greatest creation. I think it was the best cigar he ever made. And is making
Well,
now.
but so again, and I don't work for him. I did at one time work with Mel, and I expended a lot of personal energy getting people to recognize that these cigars from this factory were really, really remarkable. The Mora is a cigar that just the Mora was released, I think, officially announced, the new iteration of Mora,
Hmm.
the week after I sent you your package. The Mora is remarkable. So if you know a retailer wherever you are in the country, if you know somebody that's smart enough to be offering M Bombay as a portfolio, I urge you to seek out the Casara, which is the cigar that I fell in love with in the first place. Remember the Casaras when they first came out? They were the shaggy foot,
Hmm.
and there was a Robusto in the Casara, there was the Big Toro, and there was a great Figurata, but always with the shaggy foot. Man, so Casara, Mora, and Gaia, and there are, he's also, I would say that you and I don't have any, and I haven't smoked any recently, but I want to find some M Cubas, the
Cubas are very good
MQBA M
too.
Cubas. I want to send those to you so that we can evaluate. And by the way, there's another cigar that I guarantee would be a fun journey to follow. Here's what it is fresh. Here's what it feels like later on as we march through time. So
Yep.
just you put that in your back pocket. I'm not I picked all of these things because I had great familiarity with them and tremendous respect, and I wanted you to, to consider this portfolio of snob cigars that are the opposite of everything that we went through in the first show about, the best regular production cigars.
Yeah.
I wanted to give the other side of that, and I believe that the M Bombay collection of blends should be a part of that consideration, even though I wasn't able to get them to you for this episode.
Yeah, I wasn't as high on the Casar and the Mora initially. I am honestly excited to smoke their second iteration. Like I said,
Yeah,
I think the guy was the greatest thing he ever made, and by a large margin.
yeah.
By a
The guy had
large
just
margin.
made you. The guy had just made you sit up and pay attention and go,
Yeah.
"Wow,
Yeah.
something's happening here. This is not an amateur, and this is not somebody who's new to the game."
Yeah, and the M Cuba was also excellent too. I really thoroughly enjoyed that cigar.
Mhm.
Um,
You probably tasted M Cuba at the show just before COVID.
I believe so. Actually, we did it. Coop and I did it on a show, but it was
Hmm.
prior to that trade show, so before COVID.
Hmm.
But yeah, good to see that Mel's back, and
Yeah.
excited that he's reinvigorated, and I am excited to try some of those earlier blends and see what this new iteration, because it's my understanding
I
he's tweaked everything too, so which is cool.
absolutely, absolutely, which is, even more motivation, more reason. I urge everybody out there, if you can get your hands on some M Bombays, give them a whirl. You will not regret it.
Nice. All right, so you lit up that Figurado now, and I've got
Hmm.
my Figurado lit up now, the number two cigar.
Yeah.
Very rich, decadent, full of flavor. Holy crap! And really enjoying that. So,
Yeah,
uh,
there's a mocha quality to that cigar too.
hmm beautiful coffee flavors. That wine, that mulled
Yeah.
wine we were talking about, and
Yeah.
just that
Yeah.
all balanced by that wrapper sweetness. It's just terrific.
God, it's
Um,
fantastic.
so let's go back and revisit some of these. What we were talking about festival season. We had kind of already talked about Festival
Hmm.
de Vanos. But Pro Cigar, the festival celebrating the Dominican tobacco industry or cigar
Cigar,
industry,
right.
and but it does more than that. We talked about how it celebrates the entire country, as it were. It just
Hmm.
concluded. It wrapped up over the weekend. And I think this is Coop went down. Coop was there. I think this is might be his fourth or fifth Pro Cigar. Um, had a great time, and just an excellent group of manufacturers that have come together. And I think it's, again, this is all outside perspective. I haven't been to any of them,
Hmm.
but it seems to me it's the most organized. It seems to be that it's not just a celebration of the cigar industry, but rather of the Dominican Republic itself. Um,
Hmm. Good
George,
read.
George, how many have you been to?
I can't count. Listen, Pro Cigar developed as an idea at a luncheon that I was having with Manolo and some other cigar makers at the time in my CA days, and I said, "You guys have got to form a trade association." And he goes, "Well, we're already thinking about it, but we're fighting too much." And because that was one of the things that Pro Cigar was developed to do was to bring together these guys so that they weren't competing. There were bylaws about you can't steal other people's rollers, you can't outbid them for tobacco. It was really designed to settle down a bumpy era of the Dominican cigar growth. And boy, did they succeed.
Yeah,
But I will tell you this, I absolutely think that it is, and this is not a knock on Puro Sabor, I think it is the best focused experience that brings people in and celebrates their desire to be in the Dominican Republic and understand, to borrow an early phrase, the Dominican Republic really is cigar country, and the whole nation has embraced. So you get Dominican culture, music, food, just the joie de vivre that the country offers, and oh my God, it's so enervating, it's so rewarding. The gala, but they have gotten better and better, and I would say this now. Obviously, I'm biased. Lito is the president now, Lito Gomez from La Flor Dominicana. I would hazard a guess that this is the best run pro cigar that's ever occurred. And that people will come home and go, wow, did they up the game? I think he has set the bar impossibly high for himself. He's going to have a hell of a job topping himself next year.
Yeah. I've heard nothing but positive things coming out of this year's festival. Immensely so. I think a lot of people have the same sentiment that you do, George, about it. It is interesting. Its history is rooted in teamwork and coming togetre. Um,
That's
you,
the
you
point.
mentioned you mentioned Manolo Casada because I think it's interesting. He during the first hand rolled documentary, he talks about the boom um, with and how much animosity existed
Mhm.
with such an influx of money manufacturing, the as Nick Malilla coined, the Don Nobodies that
Yeah.
came up during that time, and what it did to Dominican manufacturing and how the quality got to a level. We were talking about the quality of Habano cigars. The quality got to the level of just above subpar. People were stealing other people's rollers. People were stealing other people's tobacco. It was just a
But
just a crazy time.
when you say that, though, the thing that you have to remember is that that kind of judgment is when you're pulled back and looking at the overall standard of the exports that were there. The Fuentes, what Henke was doing at Tabadome, what was even listens as little a guy as Juan Clemente, what Manolo was doing. Those things didn't suffer in terms of quality.
Right.
There were all kinds of players who had leaped into the game who were offering subpar product, but the giants kept stuck to their guns. The problem is that there was a divisive aspect to employment and the workforce, and the workforce is not just, it isn't only cigar rollers, man. It's the people who handle tobacco, it's the people who do sorting, it's the people who do all of the post agricultural work in all many ways. By the way, that's another thing that they do great at demonstrating. Oh my God, look at all the things that happen so that we get these cigars on the shelf in our local store, and
Mhm.
they focus on that better than anybody. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the purpose to Pro Cigar was to smooth out that sort of competition,
Right.
which was not friendly, and elevate everybody so that everybody was meeting a standard that had been established. And let's be clear about this. At the dawn of the boom, um, and as the industry exploded in 93, 94, 95, even accounting for the newbies who leaped into the business and saw a quick buck and had no concern for the actual intrinsic quality of the product that they were selling. The Dominican Republic was setting the standard for consistency. They were great cigars. Habanos was up and down. There were good product and very bad product coming out. Nicaragua was uneven except for a couple of operations. And Honduras was struggling. Honduras was struggling, I think, probably more related to organic agricultural issues than it was workforce issues. But the Dominican Republic righted itself and reasserted its we are the place where you can reliably get a great smoke that is dependable that once you know you like the blend of a particular company, you can continue to buy that with trust. You can go into a store and buy a Fuente and know that you're going to get the experience that you fell in love with. And they set the, by the way, it was no secret that the Nicaragua knew we have to get that dependable. We have to impose strict standards so that we're not the Wild West. And
Yeah.
they did it.
Yeah. What's interesting to know, we mentioned Omar a few minutes ago when we were talking about international expansion. You know, part of Omar's portfolio is produced out of the Dominican, and even a smaller manufacturer. He's not a manufacturer; he's a brand owner. Just let's be
Right.
clear.
He's a brand owner.
Yeah, he contracts manufacturers, um, impressive ones, by the way,
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
his cigars. He makes them in Nicaragua as well as the Dominican.
Yeah.
And his boxes proudly carry the Pro Cigar label. And I asked him about it one time, and he had nothing but amazing things to say and about why it was about Pro Cigar specifically, but why it was important for his brands to carry that label.
Yeah.
And it was a buy-in from ultimately a client of these factories, yes, but it was a buy-in at the brand owner level that allowed him to take ownership of his manufacturing in a very unique way by being a part of the terrific organization. A
It was
manufacturing,
a full endorsement. It was a full endorsement of the mission. He
yeah,
completely understood what Pro Cigar was trying to do.
exactly.
He
And I th
signed on. He signed on.
what I think is also really
Sorry.
cool, as well, is when you think about comparison to some of the huge manufacturers in the Dominican, from, Tabacalera Garcia, La Flor Dominicana, Arturo Fuente, Casa Carrillo, De Los Reyes. There's a lot of larger manufacturers that, have, that are obviously a part of the organization. But I've always, one of, probably, he's a quiet person in general, but one of the most quiet members, I think, of Pro Cigar, who's been there since the beginning, and he was much smaller then, and relatively speaking, he's still smaller now, and he's one of the more quiet people in the industry. Is Abe Flores of PDR, Pinar del Rio Cigars, and his factory in the Dominican has had he's had tremendous partners with some brand owners, and then of course his own brand as well. And I think, even hearing him talk about the importance of Pro Cigar and what it's meant to, again, what it's meant to his manufacturing specifically,
His stability.
yeah, stability, and it's given a lot of credence and a lot of credibility to his factory, and
Mhm.
in an incredibly positive way. But what I think is even more important still is that, you know um you might think, okay, he's only got something to gain by being a part of this organization, but he's also, again, a small player in a very big house,
Yeah.
and you know,
With a
I
shorter pedigree. With a
yeah,
shorter pedigree. Don't
yeah,
forget
with
that.
yeah,
In other
exactly.
words, and that can't be overlooked. Getting past that, right? In other words, uh, building your reputation alongside people who are 10 times your size with
A
big
10
personalities attached to them.
Right, and a tenure of four times the length too, of four or five times
Yes,
the length. Yeah, over,
exactly.
multi-generational too. Let's not forget that. But
Mhm.
um
So
it,
it says a lot about his work ethic and his understanding, his blending, but his embrace of the Dominican Republic as the
Yeah,
place to make his vision come through.
exactly. And I think it's also worth
Good
noting.
for you
Listen,
for calling out Abe.
yeah, well, I think it's worth noting because and there, I've been critical of PDR on a number of things, but mostly it has to do with branding and marketing and things like that, which just has nothing to do with manufacturing. Let's just be frank. But what I really love about,
Nobody's
A-
perfect.
yeah, nobody
Nobody
is.
is perfect.
What I literally love about Abe's fanaticism and, to your point, his work ethic and everything is that it has obviously garnered the attention of these tenured larger manufacturers, and they've embraced him as one of their own
Yeah.
without that qualification.
Hmm.
Like, and I think that's also, this is kind of where I wanted to merge into this point. The one thing I think that I notice, again, from this is from an outsider's perspective, George, and you tell me how on the money or if I'm completely off base. There seems to Puro Sabor seems to be a really grand collection of manufacturers that do a great job of telling their individual story. Again, nothing wrong with that. Pro Cigar does a great job of telling the story of the country how they play a part in it, but there's also this cohesive togetherness of manufacturers that's not one is not like the other.
There's a
It's
brotherhood. There's a brotherhood that's present in the
yeah,
Dominican Republic,
it's
which is not.
present in Puro Sabor. If I could be
Yeah,
so bold, is that? I mean, but do you feel that that's the case? Again, this is just my outside
yeah.
perspective. I've never been to either, so
But I think so. What you're, but yes, but what that reflects is the maturity of the market. Puro Sabor will get there. There's no question. There's no question that they will expand their ability to focus on the broader notion of Nicaragua as the new Havana. And everybody will have to be a part of that story. And each manufacturer will have their individual way of embracing it. But I believe that they will mature into that. It just takes time. And again, I will say this, it takes leadership. There's a reason why people are going to come home from Pro Cigar and tell you that's the best festival I've ever done.
yeah,
And the reason is Lito Gomez, but
yeah, and I think it's worth yeah, his leadership of Pro Cigar, I think definitely needs to be noted, and but for a long time the torch was carried by Henke Kellner, um,
absolutely.
and
Set the tone. Set the tone. But alongside Manolo,
of
Henke and
course.
Manolo really created the guiding ethos.
I think it was a great example for Lito. And I think, what we were talking about, for example, with Abe, and to a lesser degree, like Omar, who's a brand owner,
Hmm.
um, you know, I, I think that's what makes Lito the perfect leader for this time because Lito you know, for us and for most people who come into the industry or the insider portion of the industry, they understand that like Lito Gomez is a Hall of Famer. He's been around forever. He's been around for 30 plus years now at this point. But at one time he was that outsider. One time,
Absolutely.
yeah, and he was one of those
He was on the
massive.
end. He was on the end of the disapproving stare of the elders of the Dominican business.
Yeah, and
But fortunately, cooler heads prevailed, and they recognized what a brother he was, and how not only how passionate he was, but how extraordinary he is as a cigar maker, as a brand owner, as a marketer, but someone who's, don't forget, there's a reason, because remember, uh, La Flor Dominicana is not the name that he started out with. And he and Ines, their mission was to make La Flor Dominicana symbolic of the Dominican cigar manufacturing
mhm.
industry. And so his rise to be the head of Pro Cigar and offering this festival is the culmination. It's a crowning achievement. As I said, I have no doubt that Lito will find a way to top himself, but it's remarkable. It is extraordinary, and it deserves celebration. It deserves recognition. And look, business being what it is, there'll be people who will say, "Oh, I could have done that," but they didn't.
Mhm.
Okay, so keep that. Don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, so obviously I think his achievement needs to be applauded for sure. Um, Especially coming from with his tremendous story. So now he's leading this fraternity of cigar
Hmm.
manufacturers
Hmm.
um into a probably one of the most pivotal eras of the premium cigar industry, but also one of the most pivotal eras of Dominican manufacturing because while
Yeah.
Pro Cigar is, as we've discussed, from my outside perspective, your inside perspective is probably the superior of all the festivals. It is still worth noting that, well, that might be the case. Nicaragua has skyrocketed to a position of dominance when it comes to when it comes to cigar
In
manufacturing.
numbers,
Yeah,
in
in numbers.
numbers, and in a lot of ways, also, um, notoriety is the wrong word, and prestige is the wrong word. But the Dominican Republic got where they did by recognizing what was happening in the market and providing. I mean, achieving dependability and
Mhm.
reliability. And Nicaragua modeled their own shaping of the business of how they got to the stage where they are right now, which is in just in terms of raw numbers, they're well beyond what the Dominican Republic's output is. But again,
The
bear in
caliber
mind.
is that probably more appropriate? The caliber is superior
Mm,
when you talk about a
no, wait a
collection
minute,
of
wait a minute.
manufacturers.
Are you saying that in your mind the overall caliber of manufacturing in Nicaragua exceeds what the Dominican Republic is doing right now?
Yeah,
Ooh, Bear, you're way out there. No,
I mean
I
it
I
might be a
don't.
hot take. I mean, wait,
No, no. Well, of course. Listen. By the way, this is just a discussion. I'm not
yeah,
trying to find a gotcha moment. What I'll say is this: if the seesaw continues, in other words, if Nicaragua has the numbers and maybe even some sex appeal, that there are more people, more brand owners in Nicaragua right now who are the hot commodity
right.
than in the Dominican Republic. Okay, maybe that's the case right now, but that'll rotate again.
History
Don't
will
think for a
history will
minute.
judge it,
Don't
right?
Yeah, but also don't think for a minute that the Dominican guys aren't sitting there saying, okay, here's why Nicaragua, because this has always been the case. The people who are the movers and shakers and the shapers of the perception of Dominican tobacco and Dominican cigar making and its excellence are always analytical and thoughtful and very, very sophisticated in their evaluation of the market. So, trust me, right now, there are people in the Dominican Republic who are going, okay, how do we address the popular perception that Nicaragua has somehow vaulted past the Dominican Republic and is making the ideal cigar for the moment?
Yeah. Okay.
The Nicaraguan guys are fat and happy right now, and everybody is. And by the way, some of my favorite cigar makers in the world ply their trade in Nicaragua. Let's not get confused. But when it comes to people who can understand where the market is, what people want, and how they can meet that, there's no sharper minds than are at work in the Dominican Republic. they're not gonna say, oh, okay, well, it's all right for us to be number two. They're gonna say, fuck that. In 2 years, we're gonna be number one. We're
Mm.
gonna outdo. And they have the players, they have the tobacco, they have the skill level, and they have the sophisticated minds to make that move.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's completely fair. I just think about when you think about like the iconic brands that exist today, or the iconic
Yeah.
manufacturers when you exist today. There seems to be an answer or a counterpart across the bow, and then it just seems like there's a little bit more weight on that scale. And I think to your point, it has to do with quantity and they're quality brands too. Not I'm not trying to say they're not, but there's the quantity is definitely on the Nicaraguan side, and the quality are also is kind of above reproach in a lot of ways.
Let me tell you something that every tobacco man will tell you, and this is actually something that I learned in Cuba 40 years ago. Yield is the answer to excellence. Okay.
Okay.
So you get extraordinary cigars when you have a bumper crop yield and you're taking the top 5 or 10% of that tobacco and you get the most glorious wrapper and the most sophisticated blends. And when you have a down year in terms of the harvest, you're going to have a diminished percentage of your overall output that reaches that divine status. Right now, Nicaragua enjoys the advantage in terms of bulk, of yield, of these extraordinary farmers and the things that they're doing. And don't forget, they're not sitting around going, oh, yeah, we got it made. They're all working on, I mean, look at Plasencia bringing out Alma de Cielo,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
There's no, and as well, you have these guys that are really, really successful in everything that they do in Nicaragua, and yet what are they doing? They're like, oh, we're going to open a factory in Honduras because I keep saying, I think I've said this to you a couple years in a row. The Hondurasance is coming. Don't sell them short. There is a quality to the tobacco. There's properties. There's an incredible workforce that's there. All you have to do is look at Justo and the Aladino family of brands.
Oh yeah.
The things that they can do in Honduras today blow out of the water the cigars that transformed me from a stupid 17-year-old kid that liked Royal Jamaica cigars to, oh my God, there's so much more to cigars than I ever imagined. And I discovered the complexity, the things that farmers could do, the way that guys could blend tobacco in Honduras first. Then I discovered the Canary Islands. But the point is that Honduras is a secret weapon in terms of the tobacco, in terms of their manufacturing capability. Do not sell them short. But to get back to your comparing Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic right now, I believe that a large degree of the advantage that Nicaragua has enjoyed in creating this big, gap in terms of the total number of cigars exported versus the Dominican Republic, that's a function of yield.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. All right. So let's talk about Puro Sabor for a bit. How many times have you been able to attend? Haven't been able to attend?
No, for a variety of reasons, not least of which was for a while I didn't have a role that made sense for me to be there, and there were a couple years where I thought I would be able to go, and life intervened, both in terms of personal issues. It's one of those unfortunate things, but I've kept my eye very closely on the festival, the organizers, the events, the ways that they have advanced the story that they want to tell, and I monitor it very closely because I'm very passionate about it. Don't
Mhm.
forget, I'm one of the guys that said early on when Olla de Nicaragua first appeared in the market in the mid 70s, I said, these are the best cigars in the world, hands down. Olla de Nicaragua cigars in 1976 and 1977, they were head and shoulders above the Havana cigars that were being produced right then. Now, there were reasons for that. It wasn't just because of what they were doing in Nicaragua, which was extraordinary, and then they went through a down period. But
Hmm.
at that era, they were by far the better product.
Yeah.
And they didn't get recognition for that. Tobacconists loved it. They embraced the idea of this extraordinary, beautiful packaging, great cigars, a blend that tasted unlike anything else. I mean, they were one of the beneficiaries of people saying, "Wow, these cigars really have Cuban-esque properties," and in a
Yeah.
way that wasn't just market speak.
Well, like when you think about the cigar, the Antonio, when it first came out, just how revolutionary that blend was, in the way that it hit the market and the way that it hit the consumer's palate. It was like
Yeah,
anything we hadn't ever seen before. And then,
they were attuned to where the market was going.
and then,
So think about it this way: Antonio was a leader, not a follower,
right. And then you
as a
have
brand.
right, exactly. And
Go
then you
ahead.
have manufacturers like Perdomo, Drew Estate, Don Pepin, have really kind of started that revolution of Esteli area in general. And then now I mean, there's factories popping up all over the place and smaller companies from very tiny boutique all the way up to massive organizations like
Massive,
the ones I
massive.
just named. I think it's worth
Yeah.
noting too, like everyone talks about the sheer size of Drew Estate's facilities and the size of the My Father facilities and everything like that. Perdomo's been there longer than those two, and they're the size of their building. I don't know. I haven't been. The size of their building might be smaller, but their infrastructure is significantly larger when you take into account the amount of farming that they're doing and the type of farming that they're doing.
The
It's
type of
massive.
farming, the things, let me tell you something, man. The growth of Nick from the original operation in Miami and all the things that he's done, what his family has achieved is remarkable. And I'll tell you one other thing. You know, especially when the idea of Pro Cigar took shape, cigar tourism wasn't really a thing. People
Yeah.
didn't, that was not a normal, like, you had to be a little bit adventurous to go. Um, the way Nick conducts factory tours and how he treats people who come, you could give a college course in how thoughtful it is and
Hmm.
how educational without, educational is a dirty word these days. We're in an anti-intellectual moment. So just calling something educational is a great way to get people to change the channel, like where's the next murder mystery or the next forget it but they do and I mean to tell you this. I have never ever met anybody who went on one of the Perdomo trips that didn't come away not only praising but inspired in a way that everybody else should hope to be able to do.
Hmm.
They deserve so much credit. The Perdomo Army exists because of this unbelievable group of unpaid ambassadors that they fostered
Yeah.
by virtue of getting them in country. And
Yeah.
they do a tremendous job. And I'm not exaggerating when I say you could teach a college course about how to pursue building your brand, your legacy, and your role in an industry where you have a lot of competitors, many of whom might have a longer legacy or deeper roots or other claims to why they're more important or something like that.
Right.
Meantime, Perdomo just keeps focusing on their commitment to the product, the construction, the price, the marketing, and every effort is just one more little attention that keeps people so excited and so loyal. And I got to tell you, man, it's a remarkable achievement. But it's also, in its own way, that's a microcosm of everything that Nicaragua has done.
Sure.
They have embraced this opening in the world of cigars, and they have run with it 1,000%. I'm loving this cigar right now. I hope you're loving the one that you lit up there.
Hmm.
But is it time for another fun segment?
It is, and it'll be time for our final cigar of the evening when we come back. I don't want to put it down, but like you said, time marches on, and I definitely want to get to this number
Mhm.
one cigar that you gave me. Um,
Yes.
so we'll be lighting that up when we come back. So let's go ahead and get to our next fun segment, which is brought to you by Artista Cigars. Yes, Artista Cigars, which is one of the last hidden gems of the Dominican Republic. With nearly 70 years of rolling cigars experience, the family behind Artista believes in honoring their long-held traditions of handmade artistry. Artista's blends include factory-exclusive tobaccos and front marks for every budget. In fact, Artista Cigars is one of the most varied portfolios on the market today. There's something for everyone at Artista Cigars. Now, if you're like me and you can never decide what to smoke, Artista's Cigars is kind of a breath of fresh air because I know I can take something from nearly every box that Artista has to offer, and I know I'm going to get something truly special. So this is our this or that segment, George. I decided to divide it up into two parts, and wanted to do a festival version and also just a little bit more of a provocative cigar smoking experience version.
Okay.
So let's talk
I
about
like provocative.
yeah, so let's talk about festivals. So on on from a person who's attended a number of festivals, Pro Cigar, Festival de Habanos, um, would you prefer a factory tour on one of these festivals or one of the gala dinners, which have become
Factory tour.
infamous? Okay.
Factory tour. Gala dinners are
I'm
great.
so shocked by that answer.
Yeah, right, exactly. If betting markets could have taken money on that, you would have cashed in.
Yeah, the money would have been overwhelmingly in one side of that argument very easily. So betting it would have been a sucker's bet for anyone who wanted to bet gala dinner on
At
that.
least when it comes to my choice, at
Yeah,
least
for your choice. Yeah, no,
this is
absolutely.
right.
So preferring VIP access with industry insiders or general admission with the people.
Uh, okay, I'm a little bit of a snob because I want I think VIP access has value if you know how to make use of it,
Sure.
right? In other words, quality time with the people who are actually the ones shaping what a brand or a company is doing is invaluable, and it's never disappointing. It may be surprising, and it may be what's the right way to say this? It the answer might challenge you in the idea that you spend quality time with somebody and you discover something that you weren't expecting to learn, or that you maybe not weren't asking the right question in the first place. But when you are with these players at that level, there is always stuff that they share with you that you go, wow, that's so cool. And it's one of those things that you get to go home and say, you know, when I was there, I watched this, I saw this, I experienced that. It's unbeatable. The problem with a lot of cigar events, and I think in a way that this is a creeping thing about, you know, it certainly has plagued the Festival de Habanos. There's a grabby nature to, you know, oh, I just want to get every cigar I can get my hands on.
Okay.
That's not learning. That's hoarding, right? And you're not it isn't necessarily doing anything for you besides stuffing your humidor. You're not coming away with something that's enhanced. If you're with the rollers, if you're with the factory manager, if you're with a brand owner, you're going to come away with knowledge that you would not get if you're just standing there, you know, waiting to get your free cigar off the roller's table or the handout, you know, that goes in your swag bag. Uh,
Gotcha.
Give me access to the brains.
All right, so on that note, this is an insider's question. Would you rather have a private dinner with your favorite master blender or a full factory walkthrough where you spend an entire day with the rollers and factory manager of your favorite factory?
Ooh. So you just said I can choose between uh, a private dinner
with
with a with
your
with a
most
master blender.
your favorite master blender. I'm not asking you to name who it is, but just your favorite master blender, or a full factory walkthrough and complete day experience with the rollers and factory manager. Your favorite factory.
Well, in 90% or 95 percent of the occasions, I would opt for spending the time with the factory people. The not just the rollers, because in the factory you're going to see much more of that. You're going to see how tobacco is handled, and you also get to learn something when you watch how the factory manager deals with the people
Mhm.
that work there. But I will tell you this: I would forego any experience in the world, anytime ever, to have another opportunity to have a private dinner with Benjamin Menendez. He's the greatest living cigar guy that I know. He's the last living link to the golden era of Havana's long before the revolution. He's a font of knowledge. He's one of the most generous, kind, warm, funny people I've ever met. Any time that I could spend with him and a full private dinner where I had the opportunity to, ask some questions and get more answers and learn more from him, I'd take that over a trip to the moon.
Okay. All right. So knowing that Benji is still alive,
Yeah.
would you rather have dinner with him or your favorite master blender who is no longer with us?
Mm. Benji,
Okay.
Benji, and I'll tell you why. I've never met another, and believe me, I have known incredible cigar makers, and I was blessed to be able to spend time with them. But there is nobody that I respect more for the the breadth of his experience and everything that he has. Listen, you know how you were saying before, this business would not be the same today, right now. We wouldn't be looking at legacy brands versus boutique brands and all that if it wasn't for Benjamin. Benjamin Menendez is a titan in the entire history. Let's put it this way: I don't think there's anybody more influential in the last 100 years of the cigar business
Holy
than
shit.
Benjamin.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That's keeping in mind that you knew and spent time with, you know, Carlos Fuente Sr., Jorge Padron.
With
Like,
Don Carlos,
that's
with Jose Orlando Padron, with Ernesto Carrillo's dad and Ernesto himself. The list. Listen, I have been blessed in
it's
my
long and
life
distinguished. Yeah.
to spend time with some of the most remarkable people who are all, well, one exception, but all incredibly generous with their time and their knowledge. And they were like they shaped me so much. I will never, my journey in the cigar world was transformed by spending time with Heller Merifel and Juan Sosa too. But together, they opened my eyes about what the world could be.
Hmm.
And I knew who Benjamin was, but I hadn't yet come into his orbit enough to spend time with him. But it would follow not long after, from Cuba to the Canary Islands to the Dominican Republic to his fingerprints are in so many levels with
Hmm.
so many companies and so many brands that have shaped how people think about premium cigars. And his family, the things that he can tell you about how branding was created and why it was done in certain ways and how they work in their home market, i.e., in Cuba, in Havana, and how they worked in the United States and how they worked in Europe, like in London and Paris and Geneva. I mean, there's no way I already said it. There's nobody. And again, I want to reiterate this. I've met and known incredible people. I still know the descendants of some of the people that I've named are extraordinary people who impress me every day, and I value every minute that I get to spend with them. but there is nobody like Benjamin.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Period.
Did you ever know and get to spend time with Frank Yaneza?
Of course,
He's one of the more
I love
fascinating
Frankie.
people. I was really
But
taken
don't
by his story and the fact
but
that
don't
he
leave out don't leave out his partner Danny Blumenthal, because Danny Felicio, Villazon would not have been what it was if it wasn't for Danny and Frank were this unbelievable combination. But Frank was an incredible guy, and so knowing John Oliva and Frank Inesa and Danny, and understanding how they shape what Americans would come to think of as the cigars that would replace Cubans. Oh my
Mhm.
God, it's so amazing. Frank was
Yeah.
a, but I will tell you this: Frank was a stern guy too. To me, and I was obviously much younger. He wasn't a scary figure, but he was a guy that commanded respect.
Mhm.
It wasn't a guy you could joke around with. At least the relationship that I had. But man, the guy he couldn't help but drop pearls of wisdom.
Well, you were probably in like if I could speculate, he was probably the by the time he was your age now, you were probably in your 20s, right? Because he was,
Mhm.
I mean, he died at age 100 years old, if I recall correctly. I think he was 100, 101, and
Yeah.
that was well, almost 2 decades ago that he passed away. So, I mean, and his influence is still
His
important.
fingerprints are all. Remember everything I said to you about Honduras?
Hmm.
Frankie Nation.
Yeah, there you go.
Frankie Nation. Simon Camacho, Frankie Nation. I mean, dude, these guys, it's astounding. And the fact that I got to be around them and to hear them and to listen to them and have them say, no, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And what this? And they would, like, like rub your nose in it, like you got to learn this. Like that was fucking fantastic. It was so and for somebody who was 18, 19, 20 years old, it was so exciting. The time that I got to be around Frank, and most of it would begin at the trade shows, but the time that you got to be around him, I was like, oh my God, I'm with a Titan. It's like standing next to the Statue of Liberty. This is the symbol of everything that is supposed to be what we want to know and where we want to be and what we want to achieve. Frank was like the Godhead.
Yeah. All right, here's some of the more provocative, fun questions.
Okay.
Would you rather have not be able to retrohale ever again, or not be able to ever pair a cigar ever again?
I could give up pairing. I could give up pairing, but I can't give up retrohale because it's too important to the overall cigar experience. So
Gotcha.
to me, that's an easy one.
1 hour cigar every time, or a 3 hour commitment every time?
Probably an hour cigar because I would get to have more cigars that way.
That's my answer too. And I love a good Churchill, don't get me wrong.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
all right. Perfect burn, but boring profile, or messy burn, but incredible profile? I think I know the answer to this.
Uh, you have to take messy burn, but incredible flavor, because flavor is the reason why we do this. You can put up with disruptions in performance to a degree. I mean, in other words, I'm not telling you that I want to smoke shitty cigars because occasionally they deliver good flavor. Because, by the way, the right cigar maker can take the same components that are put on the roller's table to a guy sitting right next to him who's an average or mediocre cigar maker, and he can take that material and transform it into an incredible smoke. And the poor schlub next to him is going to produce something that's going in the seconds bucket.
We've
So that's a Lady and the Tiger question,
Gotcha.
right? There's no good answer.
Hmm. I want to go back to your just your history with the cigar industry, and I know we've mentioned him on a number of occasions on a number of shows, but I just want to come out and ask this question point blank. Is Tony Bahani the single most tragic story in the premium cigar industry history?
I don't mean to laugh at the nature of asking
I
the
know you're not
question.
laughing at his
Yeah,
expense, yeah, but it's
no, not at all, not at all. Because I loved Tony, and I still do, although I don't see him anymore. You know, he's not a part of the business, and he's sort of. I think Tony is a little bit bitter because you have to realize that Tony figured out a lot of this stuff about what's led this explosion of boutique cigars that come from people that are not weren't organically born into the business. Tony did a lot of things before many of his peers in the industry did. And he was a great guy. He was his own worst enemy, too. But the loss of his talent as a result of, uh, you know,
choices.
engaging in vendettas, if you will, yeah, decisions that Tony made, his behavior, which he knows full well. But it's tragic. It's in a way, I, this might be overstating it. I don't know how many of the audience will understand this, but the greatest musical loss of our generation was Prince getting in a fight with his record label and becoming the icon formerly known as Prince and sealing away all of his incredible music in the archives in Paisley Park, right? In other words, we were deprived of decades of his genius.
Hmm.
Now, you can experience some of it if you go there and are willing to go into what is essentially a skiff, and not have and just experience the music, but you can't record it or take it away with you. You can just let it wash over you. But that's a tragic loss. Um, and think about all of the people who might have been inspired by listening to that. Tony created a legion of people who were trying to do what he did,
Right. Yeah,
and who
it's
knows what he would have been capable of.
I'm still it still never ceases to amaze me how the his name is still uttered with such reverence, and that's not a remark on him. In a negative way, it's actually a very positive compliment because his impact it was very if you look at it from
His
a
footprint was much bigger than the brand itself
yeah
or the number of cigars he ever sold.
yeah, and if you talk about the timestamp in history that he represents in the premium cigar industry, even if you want to talk about the premium cigar industry in a vacuum since the boom, his timestamp on that history is pales in comparison to the amount of time that, say, like a Pete Johnson or even a Don Pepin, um, for that matter, have placed on this industry. Yet it's it was it was an incredible moment. He was part of that documentary 2 years ago of the Garcia
Mhm.
family that was unveiled at PCA 2 years
At
ago. And
PCA.
yeah, and when Tony Bahani came on screen, you could hear a pin drop
Hmm.
and almost a collective gasp of, and
Hmm.
it wasn't like, oh God, look that's that horrible person. It was that reverence that I spoke about. It was just like
Yeah.
a collective awe that
Well, there
was
were a bunch
just,
of people there who were going, "Wow, Tony Borhani's still alive," and there
yeah,
he is
that
on
too.
camera in front of
Yeah,
us. Because they were
yeah,
like, he vanished. He went up in smoke.
yeah.
Let's be. But I'll give you. So again, it's the curse of being old. But I'll give you an equally tragic loss. Before the gas crises, before the Dominican Republic became what it is today, and before the Canary Islands had effectively been shut down by a combination of fuel crisis and tax credits and things like that, and the shift of manufacturing from the Canary Islands to the Dominican Republic is what gave it lift, and people began to recognize there was an extraordinary cigar maker, a Cuban guy who was Miami based named Efren Gonzalez. And he was in the Dominican Republic before most people. And I think the reason that he was there was because he was frustrated at trying to make cigars in Miami at a competitive price. He knew that the cigar making skill was there, but he couldn't, the numbers wouldn't work.
Kitchen.
He went to the Dominican Republic because he believed that, he saw that La Aurora had something going, and he said, the culture is there. They can grow tobacco. They can handle it, and there's clearly cigar makers there, but they don't have the right blending formula. And he went and created a cigar called Dos Gonzales. Dude, it was a revelation. At the time that Dos Gonzales was being sold, so you're talking about the mid to late 70s. I guarantee if you walk down the street in New York, you could not find one in 1,000 people who could tell you where the Dominican Republic was on a map or what it was all about. Nobody had any idea. And Efren was there, and he made magnificent cigars.
Oh man.
And he did more than one label. And by the way, his partner was Juan Sosa. Juan Sosa,
Right.
who at the time was really working with Manolo before he left to go to the Fuentes. And Juan was Antillean was the representative for Dos Gonzales cigars. And I mean what I say when I tell you they were a revelation. They were what the Dominican Republic would become 10, 12, 15 years later.
Unbelievable. All
And he
right.
just, he gambled, and he just pissed it all away, and he's a footnote now, and there, yeah, there are some elders who remember who he was, but he gets no credit.
Said that is a shame. All
Hmm.
right. Well, I have gotten further along on number two than I thought I was going to, which is great.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Massive. Figurado. Closed foot as we talked about. Definitely broadleaf. My guess it's a Tatuaje product. But
it is indeed.
um, incredibly rich, very complex. That mulled wine kind of held consistent all the way through. Beautiful earthiness. The sweetness from the wrapper
Hmm.
was just prominent all the way through. Truly enjoyed it. It was a remarkable experience. So,
It's a cigar that Pete made for Louis Seymour for distribution in the UK.
oh wow, what's
And
it called?
it's sort of a ringer. Uh, the RC, God, I forget the, I apologize. But it was made specifically for Lewis as his importer slash distributor in the UK, and Lewis has done a remarkable job with it. That cigar is just, it's so beautiful. I don't know whether you want to sleep with it or smoke it. It's fucking great.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty torn on it myself currently. So it's I put it in the
But
class
you
of
have something else to smoke.
yeah, I put it in the class of that 20th anniversary from Don Pepin, man. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
unbelievable. So we've got
It's
the
right up there. It's right up there in points, in body complexity, depth, finish, the reward, and it's another cigar that's stuck to your fingers. You don't want to stop smoking.
yeah.
Unfortunately, you have to.
So the number one cigar that you gave me, or the cigar that was labeled number one, is this, I would
Yes,
say, Lonsdale Extra, or
it's a
again,
Lonsdale. It's
yeah,
it's it's a Lonsdale. That's the classic Cuban proportion of a Lonsdale.
yeah. Uh, this wrapper is impeccable, absolutely impeccable. Almost no veins on it
Mhm.
whatsoever, and just God, this cigar looks incredible. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the cap. We'll get a dry draw here, and then we're gonna light it up.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm really excited to go through this as we go through our last few segments of the evening.
Yeah.
Got, ooh, another perfect draw here.
Yeah.
Some more candied fruits and some barnyard with a little bit of cedar to it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a distinct cedar, like the aging cabinet top note.
Hmm. We're going to go ahead and toast the foot here.
Hmm.
And I'm using my ST DuPont monogram lighter, as I have continued to use the
Ooh,
last to enjoy some of these
very,
cigars.
Very stylish.
And
But the
then
cigar would taste equally great if you lit it with a Pep Boys match.
get this foot going here, and then just let that roll.
Let that aroma waft up.
Ooh. Well, that is
Yeah.
something very distinct and unique. Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm
There's
so
some
excited you're smoking this cigar.
there's some really nice nuttiness,
Hmm.
some sweetness that's God, I cannot decipher that.
Hmm. Yeah, because it's not overt, but uh I don't know. It's not. It's almost custardy, I think, in a way.
Yeah,
Like
it's there. Yeah.
there's baking slices swirling around in there, but there's a creaminess that disguises it. So it's not like you're not registering spice notes, but their influence on your palate is there amidst all that sexy, creamy quality.
Oh, oh my. That that
Mhm.
puff is fantastic. You nailed it, George. That there's a custardy sweetness quality to this. This is almost brulee like.
Brulee is a great word for it. I think that's the right. You put your finger on it.
Oh, well, that's just heavenly.
I'm so glad.
Shit. Well, these
Yeah.
three cigars did not disappoint. I saved the right ones. Holy crap.
Hmm.
Unbelievable, George. Wow. Okay. Well, let's just enjoy the shit out of this. Okay.
That's exactly right. There's no need to rush that cigar because it's just going to keep coming and it's going to keep rewarding you. It's really, it's showing you a little bit of leg now, but there's more to come. It's a really seductive smoke.
Yeah, yeah. That's in a
And
word.
by the way, it's a lost shape, right? You could look a long way across a lot of brands' portfolios and not find that size now.
Hmm. All right. Well, well, I enjoy this. Let's
Yeah.
wrap up the show with some of our fun segments here. And we're going to go to our Everybody Eats segment brought to you by Pastania Cigars. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Pastania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Pastania, everybody eats. So, George, we talked a lot about Pro Cigar specifically in Festival de Habanos
Yeah.
and Pro Sabor.
For some
So
more.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the Dominican Republic and food. Um, so what is the greatest restaurant in the Dominican Republic and why is it Saga?
Well, you th- th- wrong. The greatest republic in the Dominican, the greatest restaurant in the Dominican Republic is actually the kitchen at Manolo Casada's house.
Oh,
And
okay.
I would say that probably on a close second, but maybe slightly behind in terms of uh, equipment and ability to execute is wherever Lito Gomez cooks dinner.
Okay.
That's the Lito is he's a truly inspired in the kitchen. But and by the way, I will say this: one of the other most memorable meals that I had, despite fancy restaurants and clubs and all these different things, one of the most memorable meals that I ever had was a pig roast at Joe Pito Kellner's farm that Hanky and I went to. Hanky was kind enough to bring me along to what was essentially a family function, and oh my God, it was. I didn't want to leave. I was like, can I just sleep in a hut here or something, because I want more of that tomorrow.
That's awesome. I love pig roasts, man. They're fantastic.
Dude,
Uh, It's an unbelievable experience. If you haven't experienced it, you need to. It needs to happen. It needs to
Hmm.
happen
Hmm.
yesterday.
Hmm.
Um,
Do
yeah,
yourself a favor and find somebody who's doing that.
yeah. If you get first crack at the pig, go for the cheek or the jowl, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
you gotta get the jowl, but don't sleep on the crackling either.
No, of course not. Of course not. Unbelievable. What was, tell us a little bit more about your experience with Manolo. What was one of the things that he made or that was part of those meals that you might have shared with him that was so iconic and memorable for you?
They had, I mean, if I think about Chivo, I ate goat for the first time there, but we had ropa vieja. He served classic Cuban dishes that were, Versailles. Think of the best Cuban restaurants that you've ever been to in Miami, and you're never going to eat like that when you're in Cuba because they don't have the money or the resources to do that. But there's a kind of Cuban restaurant that exists in Florida that is essentially the preserved in amber memories of these extraordinary Cuban families that have made a new life in the U.S., but they want their childhood meals. And plenty of them do it good. A very select number of them do it extraordinarily well. But in Manolo's kitchen, the dishes, these meals they were eye opening. They were exquisite. While essentially you're eating peasant food, but they were extraordinary. And if you think about that, that's what's great about the best dishes in Italian and French. The best meals are the peasant dishes. The simplest, the least complex. The farthest thing from haute cuisine. Uh, they're the most memorable. And
Mhm.
I tell you, I had meals there that just they blew my mind. It's like, okay, sure, we're going to smoke a cigar after this, but can I just stay at this table and eat a little more? It's just amazing.
It's
I'll
awesome.
never forget them, obviously, because
It's incredible.
they
Have
teach
you?
you. By the way, if you want to learn about the culture of a country, go to the market and look at the people who are there and shopping. And how they shop and what they do with it. It's
Mhm.
true, in Latin countries in particular, and obviously in Italy and Spain and France. You go to these markets and watch and see, look who's there. And it's not just, the restaurateurs that are there at 4 or 5 in the morning and snapping up ingredients that are not going to show up in the average household menu. But the people, the family that whether it's the mother or the daughter or the aunt or whatever that comes in, how they shop and what they buy and what they do with it. Um, you can learn everything there is to know about a country's commitment to the joy of life as opposed to the grind. Like Americans, we go to the supermarket. It's not the same thing.
No, it's
Because, by the way, half the time you go to the supermarket, most of the work is done for you. I mean, think about how many people who probably go to the supermarket and they buy meals that are, half or three-quarters prepared. They have to do very little work at home. They're not cooking, they're more or less reheating.
yeah. I was gonna say
And
assembling. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But the culture, and in a way, it's the Cuban food and the Cuban classics are as influential throughout the world of cigar because of the Cuban diaspora. You'll find people addressing those same dishes, but with different, you know, touches based on where they are,
Mhm.
and it's revelation. It's so great to experience it.
Awesome. All right. Well, not the answer I was expecting, but certainly a great one for sure. That's great. Have you been to Saga? Because I
Mm-mm.
have. It was incredible.
Yeah. But
Very.
that's again, the part of that is that's the culture that the cigar business has imputed to the Dominican Republic. In other
Sure.
words, it's changed the fabric of the country.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, by all intents and purposes, it's an American steakhouse. I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's unlike an experience that I've ever had in a steakhouse in the
In
state.
any
Yeah,
steakhouse in the States,
yeah,
you're the level the flavor of the beef is unrivaled.
yeah, yeah, a thousand
Yeah,
percent,
I get it. I get it.
thousand
Cool.
percent. But
Put it on the list.
for sure. All right, so this will take us into our next segment, which is brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place; it can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. Light up an asylum and choose your refuge. So, wanted to go back to our kind of our theme within the theme tonight, of festivals and the amazing experiences that you've had over the years, in factories and with master blenders, of course, and things like that. Take us to a time at one of these festivals and where you got to sample a cigar, you got to smoke a cigar that was just truly transcendent. And if you can remember what that moment was about, if you can remember the cigar, what can you remember about it? Maybe you've had a couple of these moments. Wanted to see if you could pull one of those from memory for us today.
Well, I'm lucky because I've got a variety to draw from, but now I'm going to contradict myself in one respect. One of the early festivals to Havana, when they were still less mercantile, less mercenary, less cynical, was the launch of the Trinidad. And we had a dinner the night before, um, and everybody got um, one, as part of the launch. It was the preview, and they were actually going to go on sale the next morning. But we had been eating. All of us had been, in factories and scrambling around the island and doing everything that we could, and which meant a lot of smoking and a lot of eating, and for the vast majority of the people who were there, a lot of drinking. So at the end of that dinner, I think there were people who were like, okay, because the Trinidad Fundadori, that was the launch, was a Cohiba Lancero, except it was a 40 ring gauge, not a 38. So it was had a little, maybe that's the beginning of the obesity epidemic. Oh, if it's 38, why not make it 40? Right. But anyway, the thing is that people are in those circumstances, they're primed to say, "Oh, this is wonderful" and everything. But the thing is that that shape was like people were like, "Oh, this is good" and everything. But the crowd wasn't overwhelmed. It was a little bit of a muted. I mean, listen, everybody felt great. Oh, we get to be the first to smoke it, and this is incredible. Blah blah blah. But the next morning, Suckling and I got up and we spent an hour going around. We went to see Abel, and we were looking at. We went to several locations, and we ended up buying as many boxes of Trinidad Fundadores as we could get that morning from multiple places. And there were people who facilitated us getting more than our fair share. We were sort of at the head of the line. And so that was in a way selfish. It was bigfooting, it was cigar aficionado behavior, if you will. But we smoked those cigars that morning. And I said, we had Cuban coffee. By the way, Cuban coffee in Cuba, it basically blows. It's coffee shit. But anyway, we had them, and I was like, oh my god, this cigar is insane. We have to go out to El Laguito and sniff around, and I mean, they were a revelation. They were I mean, I literally, that's one of those moments where you just lean back with the cigar and go, "Oh, shoot me now! It doesn't get any better than this," And how, I got to have this, and we couldn't wait to, talk about it and tell people and get Marvin excited, and he's like, "Where are mine?" And that it was just it was phenomenal. That was a moment that was like, wow, this cigar. And remember, the Cohiba Lancero was still, in that era when it was like, oh, this is Castro's cigar, and you're somebody if you went there and they gave you a box of Cohiba Lanceros on the way out, and everybody they were all, no, they wanted Cohiba Robustos, they wanted the Splendidos, they wanted all these other things, but the Lancero was still the iconic cigar because it was Fidel's cigar, and the fucking Trinidad Fundadore put that in the rear view mirror
Oh wow.
instantly. It was like, oh my God, there's a new icon on the island. And remember that people had not yet begun to explore, because the Cubans were acting like they invented it, but that was bullshit. The Trinidad brand had been around before in other hands. And, it's just one more example of them looking through the catalog going, oh, yeah, well, this belongs to us now. But the cigars were a fucking revelation. They were so. I mean, I just remember going, we got to get more, and we had already been pigs about, what we were hoarding, but I was like, no, 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 we can't stop.
Juice was worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
George, do you still have any of these iconic cigars that we've talked about in the past and even tonight? I mean, do you still have any in your personal collection? I know we're talking decades and years that have passed, and I know you smoke through your stuff, so because you truly enjoy it, obviously. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't pin you as a collector, but do you still have anything from these days? Is there anything left over?
Uh, a few bits and pieces, but I don't. Trust me, I don't have any Splendidores. I know where I could get a few because there's somebody that I turned on to immediately that morning. I said, "Get up, go out, pursue this. Don't fuck around." Um, but to be honest, cigars are meant to be smoked. And
Yeah.
while there are, and by the way, I sold a lot of vintage cigars that I had to Marvin because he wouldn't leave me alone, and that, he more or less cleaned me out in that. But there are also, um, I just, I like enjoying them. I like sharing them. I don't, there are a few things that I hoarded. Obviously, I told you the story of the Monte Cristos that I was fortunate enough to get that were, made with tobacco that was grown the year I was born. And they were cigars gifted to the last U.S. ambassador. So those, I stretched those as long as was humanly possible. There are other cigars that I've had that I kept for long periods of time. But at some point, you look down and you go, these cigars, they're not going up anymore. They're fading. So you share them, right? Because that's what they're for. Did I ever tell you the story about being at the Partagas factory for the 150th, the launch about that?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it very briefly in one of our shows. Yeah.
So we had been, and it's funny the timing, but we'd watched the Partagas celebration of the U.S. In other words, the General Cigar Partagas, which was a very sophisticated blend and a beautiful job, but obviously took a back seat to everything, all the hoopla around the Cuba's release of the 150. But I went to the factory, and we ended up meeting and interviewing the three people who rolled the three sizes that made up, because when Cuba did the Partagas 150, that's when they revived the old Lusitania shape, the 109. So there were three different sizes, three different cigar makers who made them, and we were interviewing them. I was talking to one of them, and I said, because she had been there in the Ramon Cifuentes era, she had worked at Partagas in the 1950s before the revolution, And I said, what would you think about somebody if they came to you today and said, "Oh, do you want to smoke a cigar that you know was made when you first worked here, 45 years ago?" And she said, "Why? Why would anybody have a cigar then? Why wouldn't you have smoked it?" She just looked at me like, "What? The, the cigars that I made were meant to be smoked, and even if you kept them 2, 3, 4 years, they would be great. But at this date, there's nothing left. Why would you do that?"
Hmm.
And I loved it. I was like, that's the whole point. These are social instruments, and they make our lives better when we share them. So stop hoarding and assemble your friends and forget your challenge. Drag out your best whiskey, your best rum, your favorite brandies, and your most precious cigars, and get your friends together and enjoy them. Because tomorrow is promised to nobody, and things could change drastically.
Yeah, it's good advice for sure. So, that'll bring us to our last question of the evening, and then we'll talk about our number one cigar here, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. Um, Tonight's last question is sponsored by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Sock has been knocking them out of the park. Count them up. It's been over a decade now, 11 consecutive years in the consensus top three. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So, George, I was thinking about your contribution to the industry over the decades, and for a long time, you were given a wonderful outlet with your amazing ability when it comes to the written word. You were able to write and write and write about this industry and document some of the most prolific stories, announcements, cigars, their makers. You basically brought the cigar review and the concept of ranking and rating um, to popularity. And over the years, we've had the good fortune of having you on these shores and on these shows, and of course, that's all preceded by, what I draw on is still one of my greatest inspirations into doing what I do here on this show, is podcasting, but the
Thank you.
legendary Draper dialogues.
Yeah.
So, your eloquence notwithstanding on the spoken side of things as well too. So my question is this: if you could go back and if you had to choose one avenue, whether it be, the Draper dialogue slash eventually coming into, as a guest on many of these shows, and speaking and telling your stories and asking the questions and being a part of the grander discussion in the spoken word, or
Yeah.
you were only allowed to write about it, which do you think you would choose?
Well, I that's a difficult question for the simple reason that I think if you commit to paper some things, it has maybe not right now, like, people don't read books, magazines, newspapers the way they used to, but
Right.
it's still, if you put something down, there's an element of posterity to it. But having said that, I still get tremendous satisfaction at the aspect of getting, and this is in both directions. In other words, the idea of having an audience gathered in a place like we used to at Draper's, and like I have done at Capitol now, with incredible, an engaged and dynamic and attentive audience, and have somebody like Pete, somebody like Carlito, somebody like Michael Herklotz, somebody, I mean, the list goes on and on, but and the Draper dialogue was. we were ahead of our time in doing that. John and Matt were, gracious in letting me do it, but there were all kinds of people. I just met a guy who has uh, a, a burgeoning cigar brand. I won't talk about it yet because it's not really right. I don't want to steal his thunder, but he said, I'm in this business. I got passionate and dove into it and learned more because you gave a course at Club Macanudo in the 90s when they first opened. And you said things about cigars that completely changed my perspective about the whole industry.
Mhm.
And I'm involved in it today as a direct consequence of how that opened up. I think that when you can have a forum and I can have a dialogue with somebody who is a cigar maker with as much to share with the world as many of these people are, my what I take pride in is being able to have a conversation with them, which opens up the world so they share with the people that are right there, and all of those people immediately become um, better informed is the wrong word, but they're more enthusiastic. They embrace the idea that there's much more of this than just, yeah, I lit up a cigar and, we're
Mhm.
hanging out with our buddies and everything. In other words, it deepens their appreciation of the art of the cigar. And I just feel like doing it live with these people is so rewarding because the engagement is there and the response is there, and it's so good for the cigar makers as well because it didn't used to be these a lot of these people worked 40 and 50 years in the business before they ever got to really spend time with their audience face to face. Yeah, they would meet retailers and stuff like that, but there was no format for them to directly engage with consumers and to find this incredible appreciation for their art and their achievements.
Mhm.
So that and none of that is about, I don't, I, I just like to be the agent that can pull that out.
Yeah. It's, I'm 355 episodes into this, so the list of people I've yet to talk to in a formal setting, and have a conversation with in the context of the show is lessening and lessening throughout the years, just because, by the nature of the amount of time I've been able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there anybody left that you haven't had one of those sit down conversations with? Is there anyone left on the list that you're like, man, I would really like to talk to this person and have that kind of a lengthy dialogue and
Well, I'll
conversation?
tell you one person. I'll tell you one person right now. I'd like to spend time with Kyle Gellis.
Hmm.
Um, and there are some other people that I could think of, but here's the difference. I'd rather engage with somebody that I think is already has some recognition that's out there, but maybe isn't in the same tier as the legends, as I used to call them, the cigar gangsters of today. Um, I think that the primary purpose of this massive growth of cigar media should be to find and engage the young people that have embraced all of the things that being a great cigar maker entail. And I want them to find a bigger audience. So the newer, the younger they are, and maybe the more original the way they think, because that's the blessing right now. There's all kinds of people that are like, well, maybe it doesn't have to be this way, and they have a different approach, and as a result, their product has a different personality. Well, more people need to know that it's not about touting somebody that's already a titan. I'd rather drag somebody else into the limelight and say, who inspired you? How did you learn this? Where was the pivotal moment where you decided that you wanted to work with tobacco in some way, shape, or form? And those are the stories that people go, oh wow. And I would like nothing better than to be an agent for finding some new young talent, as opposed to saying, you know, these are the legends. But again, having said all that, I would do anything to have one more dinner with Benjamin.
Gotcha. Well, George, thank you so much for being a part of today's show. I'm
Yeah,
still smoking the number one cigar, and it is
yeah.
unbelievable.
Mhm.
The texture of the smoke is incredibly
Mhm.
just God, it just coats the palate.
Ethereal, but lasting.
Yeah,
It's delicate and complex, but without being a heavy footprint. And the finish goes on forever.
forever.
I'll tell you right now, before I even tell you what it is, but I will tell you to my way of thinking, and again, maybe this is just my fucked up palate. Hands down, that is the number one cigar of the year.
Okay. Well, let's hear it, George. What is it? Because I'm lost.
It's the
I
test.
honestly,
It's it's the Tatuaje 20th 898.
fantastic.
And dude, I'm telling you, that cigar has all the properties of the greatest cigars that I smoked in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. That cigar is a history lesson about the mastery of cigar making and what blending can do and how you can arrive at a flavor which is just so arresting. And yet it's not about power.
Mm,
It's the farthest thing from that. It's about this embrace. And it is, I swear to God, and there are cigars. Yeah, I mean, you think about it, the things that I've submitted to you, and there's a couple things that we haven't really talked about that were in this equation. In other words, that M. Bombay's this cigar that I'm smoking right now. You know what this was? That beautiful Salomon style figurado that I lit up.
no,
It's
but
the Kellner. It's the Kellner 80th.
oh, fantastic.
Oh, dude, I'm in awe. But and listen, I haven't smoked that many of these. I was late to the party on these, but and that's the reason why you didn't have one in there. But it doesn't matter the reason why. But here's the thing: even as much as I love this cigar, and as much as I'm enjoying it right now, the cigar you're smoking puts it in the shade.
Mm. It's it's
It's a
unbelievable.
masterpiece. It is a
Yeah.
masterpiece. That is a cigar that will endure. And by the way, you asked me about a moment at the festival and everything, and I was talking about the Trinidad Fundadori. I will remember smoking that cigar as long as I remember the Fundadori.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's fantastic. I really did end up saving the last cigars. This is great. For my personal palate, I think number two is probably I like a little bit of stronger cigars, so I think
You
two is. But
you like
this,
the punch, and you like the weight and what that broadleaf delivers too,
mhm.
because the broadleaf is the signature note of the number two, and I believe me, I don't argue. I would love smoking that too. But if you offered me those two cigars and said you can only smoke one of them for the rest of your cigar smoking life, in a heartbeat, I would tell you the 898.
Gotcha. I
And that's just
wouldn't.
me.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if either one was my last cigar
Right.
ever. Yeah,
There you go. That's good.
great
All right,
experience.
brother.
George, thank you so much. This was an incredible exercise spanning two shows and just unbelievable smoking experience.
The, the
Unbelievable
the
cigars.
two
Just
shows
fantastic.
are the two shows are my fault because I talk too much.
No, well, the technical difficulties really kind of played into it, George. But no, I
Yeah,
again can't thank you enough for this. This was incredible. What a terrific experience. We know my
happy to
audience is
do it.
gonna our audience is gonna enjoy this. And we went later tonight than we usually go, but it was absolutely worth it. And for those of you catching us on replay later, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, You're listening to us courtesy of Gran Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today. Thanks to our good friends at Gran Habano. Learn more about the cigars that we smoked over the last, the 353rd take, and now the 355th take of ELOSOFUMARTAKES. You can check us on our YouTube channel, ELOSOFUMAR, or if you are tuning into us live, like we broadcast nearly every Sunday night at 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern. Our video broadcast is courtesy of Foundation Cigars. Nick Melillo began his career in the cigar industry at the age of 18, working in a cigar shop, the Calabash Shop, in his home state of Connecticut. He went on to work for the well-known cigar company Drew Estate. We talked about them tonight, where he developed some of the brand's most popular blends. In 2015, he started Foundation Cigar Company to create unique and flavorful cigars that would appeal from everyone, from the novice to the most experienced smoker. So check out foundationcigars.com today for more information, calendar of upcoming details, and of course, all the cigars that Nick has to offer. And for all of you out there, really appreciate all those likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. We really do appreciate it, as always. And we appreciate our guest tonight, which was brought to you by United Cigar. Smoke one today and start living united. It's Mr. George Brightman, who has taken my initial invitation years ago to join me on my top 10 unveiling, and we have now expanded this with the top 14 limited edition cigars of the previous year. This is has been a phenomenal exercise that I truly enjoy, and we're looking forward to having George back on as soon as he can possibly make himself available, so we can have more great
We'll try to do better next year. We'll try to do better next year.
Like
right?
Lito Gomez, we got a challenge in front of us, but hey, we're up for it, right?
Exactly right. That's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks to our audience for staying up late with us. Again, thank you for all those likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming, as always. My name is Bear Duplisea, and I'm live from the Alec Bradley studio of Azle, Texas. This was our 355th take. He's George Brightman, everybody. And guess what? We'll see you next time.